Someone screams for the Empress to be found, but another man orders that every single one of them be plunged into eternal sleep. At this time, one of the knights bursts into the room where Her Majesty is. It turns out it's Valencian solitaire and solitaires, and the guy screams that it is not safe to stay there. But the woman in response to this only asks if they really came for her head. Empress J-Lilith is the youngest swordmaster in the Empire, and also the great sorceress is officially recognized as an ivory tower. This heroine has suppressed 9 rebellions over the past 40 years and won 5 large-scale wars. A tyrant who at the age of 16 raised a rebellion and destroyed the entire empire and seized the throne. All these titles belong to the haughty and powerful empress, who was his twin sister, and the girl's name is J-Lilith, solitaire solitaire. The guy asks the lady what she's talking about, and she just asks why he doesn't run away, to which he replies that he has nowhere to run, because wherever Her Majesty's closest advisor goes, he will become a target for the rebels. The girl asks who said that he is her closest advisor. After all, she'd never had anything like this before. Afterwards, she'll ask the guy to accept his apology for such reckless conclusions. But at that very moment, someone shouts out that the Empress is there, so let everyone gather at the entrance. The man claims that he hasn't seen J-Lilith for a long time. Her arrogance remains unshaken, even in the moments of the Empire's decline. This man is the rebels' chosen prince, Justinian Solitairon. Solitaires. He says that today he will finally overthrow the tyrant from the throne. But the girl only smirks and says how wonderful it is. But she finally decided that all his allies would become food for her dragon, and she will take care of him personally, so they will see if he can also smile to infinity with the collar on. The man then jumps up and shouts for them to attack. But at that very moment, Valencian swings his sword and cries out that first he will have to fight him. However, then the young man sees the aura of his opponent's blade and wonders when he managed to become a master of the sword. However, his interlocutor only tells this idiot to go away. After all, he's a disgrace to his family. A little while later, Valencian opens his eyes. He rises from the floor and immediately addresses Her Majesty. Well, when he looks up, he sees that the woman is standing unwaveringly in front of the rebel leader. The guy understands that this is it. The prince chosen by the people will fall there with his rebel army. But at that very moment, they hear some kind of roar, and when they raise their heads, then they see a dragon. The Empress says that this is somehow unbecoming of a folk hero, and her interlocutor claims that along with the title of Swordmaster came the realization that he personally would never defeat the lady, so he had to resort to help. The woman says that he removed the seals. Her interlocutor replies that this is true, and he called upon the ancients. When the Empress directs her forces at the dragons flying towards her, then her opponent realizes that this is his chance, after which he runs at the lady and then completely takes away her hand. At that very moment, the dragon launches its attack, and the woman realizes that it is difficult for her to maintain her balance with one hand. But at that very moment, someone turns to Her Majesty and asks her to step aside. Her Majesty, looking at the guy, wonders if he is capable of confronting the sea dragon with flame, after which she suggests that he leave quickly, but her interlocutor only addresses J-Lilith, and they claim that 40 years have passed since he last spoke her name. From the very day she took up the sword and sat on the golden throne, he lived a carefree life as a useless member of the imperial family, far from power. Surprised by this, and her interlocutor asserts that if he had not, then abandoned everything around him to its own devices, then perhaps now he would be able to stop the sea dragon's flame. It's funny that he's trying to protect her with things like that skills, but in the end, he is her brother. After which, the young man uses his power to try to contain the dragon's flame, but still cannot withstand it. While the girl is talking to her brother, he thinks that it would be good if he were given another chance. After all, then, he would have definitely protected the lady and their entire empire. But at that very moment, someone cries out to His Grace, the Duke of Valencia, and states that it is time for him to get up. When the guy finally gets out of bed and turns to the maid, T.O. wonders if it is Ruby, after which he asks what she is doing there, since she was definitely executed. The woman wonders if Lord Valencian had a dream, and the man looks at himself in the mirror and realizes that he has returned back in time to his 18-year-old body when he was not yet a useless imperial offspring. The young man is shocked and wonders how this could have happened, and how Rudy fell into eternal sleep during the Great Depression. The guy asks what year it is and tells the girl not to dare lie. His interlocutor replies that it is now 1073, according to the imperial calendar, and this is the first spring of the reign of Empress Celility, after which the young man understands what it means that the Great Repression will soon happen. Celilite's reign, the imperial palace will be covered in red liquid. The nobles will start a rebellion against the current monarch, but their plan, it will not escape the watchful eyes of the empress, and each of the rebels will be mercilessly plunged into eternal sleep. At that moment, the guy was unable to take either side and remained alive, only because he is the empress's twin. However, as a warning, his maid Rudy was executed. The guy understands that he needs to think about what will happen next, and that it is not enough for him to simply survive. In a past life, the empire fell due to constant uprisings and executions of their participants. The young man understands that he cannot interfere with the government because he must not forget that the empress took possession of the throne by plunging her relatives into eternal sleep. And he is her brother, and if he reveals his abilities and becomes a threat to her rights to the throne, she will not hesitate to plunge him into eternal sleep, so he must show that he does not seek power, and at the same time do everything possible to end the imperial tyranny. But then the young man thinks how to do this, and at that moment, the perfect idea comes to him. The guy vowed never to return to such a life, but there was no other way out. After which, the young man realizes it's time to become a scoundrel again. The young man understands that his intuition is telling him so. The Great Repression will happen today, so there is no time to waste. At that very moment, the guy starts throwing things around in his room, and the maid looks at it in shock. He turns to the gentleman and asks what came over him, after which the young man opens a bottle of wine. And he starts drinking it, and the woman screams at him in shock. The guy immediately spits out the drink and realizes that he had almost forgotten about the spy letters. If his memory serves him right, the rebels could show up there at any moment. But when the young man opens the compartment with these letters, he wonders why there are so many of them. At the same moment, someone else comes to Duke Valesian and says that they urgently need to discuss something important. However, the man only sees the guy burning sheets of paper and screams what this means. The young man then turns to his dear half-brothers, after which he sits down on the sofa and, taking a bottle of wine in his hands, asks what brought them there. One of them screams out what kind of strong fumes this is, and why the guy decided to drink so suddenly. The man also wonders what it is and why he burned all their letters, after which he even asks if her knights have really been there. But the guy at the same moment screams at him to watch his language, because this lady is the empress. His interlocutor wonders if the young man has decided to back out, and the other asks if this is all because he is a blood relative of the empress, after which the man screams out what a scoundrel this guy is and orders the traitor to be put into eternal sleep. Well, at that very moment, who else comes into the room and screams for these rebels to be removed? The people in the main character's room are shocked and ask if these are really knights. But this is a platinum order. Valencian at this point picks up a bottle of wine, after which he hits one of the rebels and also shouts that they should never turn their backs to the enemy. The others watch this in shock and scream out what is happening. They also call the guy crazy, but the young man asks what the kittens are meowing about, after which he starts throwing things around the room and screams at them to attack if they dare. When the rebels run away, they scream for this crazy person to be calmed down. And at that very moment, one of the knights turns to His Grace, the Duke of Valencia, and asks him to stop. This man claims that he doesn't know what's going on, but it looks like he's not on their side, and that's the main thing. Don also states that the master should immediately return to the main palace, remains silent in response to this, and his interlocutor suggests that he be vigilant and strongly recommends learning magic or swordsmanship. But the Duke replies that he is not interested in such things, after which he suggests that they stop with the moralizing and bring him some tasty wine. The knight then orders the others to return, to which they agree. And the main character kicks one of the rebels and tells them to take this mediocrity with them. The knight says what a scoundrel this rebel is, and who knew that everything was so bad, after which they leave, and the young man remains in his room and sighs. He says that he was forced to do this because a little more, and a real catastrophe would have broken out. At this time, the maid turns to the master, and he remembers that Rudy is also there. The guy approaches the lady and asks if she is hurt, after which he apologizes. After which the young man smiles and thanks her, and also claims that he has no time to relax. The guy immediately claims that he urgently needs to get to the imperial wine cellar. The maid, in shock, asks if he has completely gone crazy, to which the guy replies that it is indeed a little reckless, but he has no choice, so he needs to end it before the Great Depression. A little while later, the young man is already going down into the cellar, and when he turns around, "Tio, think is there really no one there?" Well, it's so dark there that you can lose your eyes. At that very moment, someone attacks the guy, and the young man barely dodges. He understands that he has already completely forgotten about it, because there is an immortal hunting dog created by J-Lilit. The guy also wonders if he can use magic in this untrained body. The young man then creates an explosive flickering flame and directs it at the dog. He realizes that he has succeeded and then starts to run away. A little while later, he finds himself in front of the bars and wonders if anyone saw him use the spell. After all, it will come to an end if someone notices, after which the guy understands that it's time to start. Some object in her hands, as he thought everything is exactly the same as in his past life, not long before the Depression, when the Empress's ascension took place. The young princess's maid decided to take revenge for her captured mistress. She mixed poison into the wine that was supposed to reach the Empress, but things didn't go according to plan. The enraged Empress mercilessly sent the princess's dead body back to her parents. They in turn were filled with anger and hated the Empress with all their hearts. The only chance for peaceful coexistence with influential nobles was lost because of some kind of wine, after which the man turns to the maid and tells her not to do this, but to bring him regular wine. His interlocutor claims that she listens to only one person, and he sighed and said that it was a pity, after which the young man cries out to the guards and claims that there is an intruder in the wine cellar. The woman immediately replies that she will not give up so easily and attacks the guy. But the young man begins to conjure a sharp piercing flame and directs it at the woman, after which she falls to her knees, and the rest of the knights come running and shout at them not to move and not to resist. A little while later, the Empress looks at the maid and says that she is quite brave, because she not only broke into the wine cellar, but also intended to poison her. The princess at that very moment screams that it is all because of her, and this maid had been by her side since childhood. She did something stupid for her mistress' sake, so she begs them to have mercy. The Empress replies that she knows since one attempt at poisoning was unsuccessful, so let the second one be effective and invite all the rebels to drink wine. The woman also claims that the princess's family will not be punished, so she can sleep peacefully. She also heard that the princess was the daughter of a concubine, so why did she take such an active part in the rebellion? The blonde replies that her brother reached the rank of sword expert at the age of 25, and last year he rebelled against Her Majesty and was therefore executed. The woman replies that she remembers, and he was an excellent swordsman, and her interlocutor asks if any other reasons are needed. J-Lilit! He replies that no, and that is enough, after which he raises his hand. At that very moment, someone cries out to Her Majesty and reports that Valencian was also involved in the uprising. The young man mentally tells this creature to shut up and cries out to Her Majesty that this vile fox is slandering him. He also claims that the man talks a lot for the one who passed out from one blow to the head with a bottle, while his interlocutor asks what he is talking about and whether the guy has already forgotten how he swore that very day. Valencian. He replies that he swore in his mouth because his interlocutor is talking complete nonsense. Well, at that very moment, the Empress says that everyone should be quiet, and she will not repeat it twice, so they will continue what they started. The woman raises a glass of wine and offers them to drink it, after which the rebels do so. When one of them floats out of the wine, he falls down lifeless. The protagonist watching this understands that it was close, and it seemed to him that she was about to leave this man unpunished. However, then the young man looks at the Empress, and she asks what he was doing in her wine cellar. And how did I find out that there would be an attempt to plunge into eternal sleep? The main character then replies that he actually wanted to steal a bottle of wine for himself. The rest of the room are shocked and ask if he has gone crazy. And the Empress wonders if he really wanted to steal her wine, after which everyone asks him how dare he. The young man answers Her Majesty that he is sorry because he succumbed to temptation. Well, didn't they catch the poisoner only because of his sinfulness? The young man also suggests that she close her eyes this time, after which everyone in the room falls silent. And the woman just starts laughing and then says how reckless it is. After all, has he really lost his fear? The woman also says that it's good, and the one who saved her life really deserves pardon, so she forgives him. The young man says that the Empress is immensely merciful and understands that it worked. The woman also claims to have received a report from the maids and knights of the Scarlet Halo Palace. They claim the boy burned the letters, scattered all the books, and threw away his sword. Therefore, she hopes that he will not try to return what was lost. After which, the woman says that that's all because she's tired, and the young man turns around and leaves. When he passes by the aristocrats, he notices their glances at him and understands that they apparently think he is out of his mind. In any case, it doesn't matter, because there is only one person whose opinion is important to him. A little while later, the guy is already near the Platinum Knights training ground. The commander turns to the knights and tells them to speed up and run faster, but one of them replies that he cannot see his mother has run out. The man claims that by overcoming himself, he will increase his mana capacity, and the knight says that he would at least like to avoid falling into eternal sleep from overexertion. However, his commander asks what will happen if he falls into eternal sleep. At this time, the main character is sitting under a tree and drinking wine. He understands that the knights are working according to the training method of J-Lilith, the youngest swordmaster in history. It involves running circles around a training ground until you drop from exhaustion. The guy also understands that while they are sweating in the sun, he is resting in the shade and wondering if it irritates them. After which, the young man even tells them to put in more effort, because how can young swordsmen be so weak? Valencian. He is beaming with joy and thinking how they can do this and that. They should hurry up and challenge him to a duel. At the same moment, one of the knights tells Duke Valencian that he thinks he has overdone it with alcohol. The young man asks what they are talking about, since he is not even drunk yet, and he is asking this man to hit him. His interlocutor merely asserts that the Duke has already earned himself a reputation as a vile drunkard, and one wonders if all alcoholics are so lucky that they can survive even after a break-in into Her Majesty's wine cellar. The main character says that judging by how difficult such an easy training is for them, he is quite pathetic. His interlocutor also screams out what this drunken scoundrel said. The protagonist realizes he's got a fish to fry. His interlocutor exclaims that he's heard the Duke spends his days drinking and harassing the maids. Not only is he a drunkard, he is also a pervert, and if he still has even a drop of conscience left, then let him sit quietly and keep quiet. And the main character thinks what kind of dirty rumors these are, but maybe it's worth taking advantage of them. Valencian immediately rises from his seat and asks if the knight really has a sister. The guy also claims he likes passionate women like himself, but in his mind, he thinks how humiliating this is. After which, the knight is about to hit him, shouting that he will now teach him a lesson. But at that very moment, someone stops him and suggests that he stop, and also asks what Sir Bonnel is doing. The woman also turns to His Highness and asks what brought him there, and the guy understands that this is Lady Tentia, a knight who was slandered and exiled, after which she became the right hand of Prince Justianus. After which, the young man understands that she will have to be driven away very soon. The woman at this time turns to His Grace, the Duke of Valencia, and the guy remembers his role. After which, he screams that this scoundrel insulted him and also called him an alcoholic and a pervert. The woman asks if he really just did that, and the young man understands that she is not even trying to hide her emotions. Bonnel screams that this guy was the first to insult his family, and he talks about his sister almost in tears. The protagonist wonders if he really does have a sister, and he's obviously really hurt this guy. But now, the young man is only interested in what he said, after which he invites him to stop evading and to fight him one-on-one in a private fight. But at the same moment, Lady Tentia asks his lordship whether it would not be better to organize an official duel. After all, it is not proper for a nobleman to act impulsively, and the guy says that if you think about it. But at that very moment, his opponent cried out that he agreed. Tentia turned to the Duke and said he had until Friday to prepare and practice. Therefore, she personally asks for his permission to train with a sword, after which the guy answers that it's fine and understands that the job is in the bag. Well, a little while later, when the day of the duel arrives, the main character thinks about what happened. Usually, only those of higher rank are present at a duel, but what worries him most is the question about what in the name of all that is holy is Selalit doing there. At this time, the host welcomes everyone to the official duel taking place under the control of Her Majesty, after which he invites the participants to show off their outstanding skills, and the main character understands that he is doomed. This guy also wonders why out of all the possible options he was forced to choose a public duel. Lilith will look at him all the time, and what if she realizes that his fencing is too good for the one who, in her opinion, has just started to practice it? But at that very moment, the guy's opponent jumps out with an attack and screams that, "I need to look around." The young man dodges the attack and then reflects his opponent's sword. At the same moment, someone turns to His Highness and claims that during sparring, one cannot aim the sword below the waist. At that very moment, one of the observers cries out, "What impudence this is!" And the main character, with a smile on his face, replies that he didn't know, after which he apologizes. His interlocutor asks how he could not know, since these are the basics. Then the two cross their blades again, and the protagonist begins to shake. His opponent also holds the sword with shaking hands and says that His Highness is holding up well. The protagonist wonders if he is already at his limit and asks how about Togo introducing him to his sister. After all, better late than never, after which the knight wonders why the Duke continues to go too far. After all, he can't tolerate this bullying any longer. After which the knight uses level 1 of the Imperial fencing style, which is called the Fusion of Pain. The main character is shocked and wonders if this is really a fusion of pain, and the technique used. Mana instantly fills every part of the body, releasing incredible power. At the same moment, the protagonist's opponent deftly pushes him away. The young man understands that when using this technique, the body and magic are strengthened, and it is simply terrifying. At this point, his opponent only screams, and the guy understands that if he cannot parry this blow, he will definitely fall into eternal sleep. Therefore, Togo will have to try hard to stay alive when his interlocutor wants to attack the guy. Then he reflects the attack, and the knight asks what it is. The Empress is also a little surprised, after which the duel continues. The knight realizes that his opponent has suddenly become stronger, after which he even wonders if Duke Valencian just used MANHWA. And is it possible that he is practicing in secret from Her Majesty, and that he won't get away with it? One of the knights asks if it is true that he used magic, and the other replies that this cannot be true, because how can one use it without undergoing a training course? The main character understands that now he needs to see if he can get out of this situation unscathed, after which he cries out what they are whispering about, and whether they are really blaming him out of envy for something that did not happen. While the other knights say that this guy is just a careless idiot, the red-haired lady realizes that he moves definitely like a person who knows how to use mana. At this time, the young man claims that the knight did say that he would teach him a lesson, but which of them needs it more? His interlocutor exclaims, "What an arrogant madman this guy is!" And this time, he will definitely know shame, after which Valencian understands that nothing can be done. He immediately throws his weapon at his opponent and then uses a dirty trick, hitting the knight between the legs, after which he cries out in pain, smiles in response to this, and one of the observers says, "What impudence is this?" Valencian claims that it seems he has won. At this point, Tentia just sighs and realizes that she most likely just imagined it. One of the knights shouts to the guy that he was told not to aim below the waist. The young man replies that he was only talking about the sword. One of the knights cries out that this is practically spitting in the enemy's face, and this is such a vile act, but the main character asks if this is a shame for a nobleman who has never learned to wield a sword in his life. But at that very moment, the Empress says that it is enough, after which he turns to the Duke of Valencian and tells him to come over. The guy realizes that she has finally spoken, after which he approaches Her Majesty the Empress and greets her. The woman claims that she closely followed the duel, and the protagonist replies that he is deeply touched by her generosity, which the lady showed by patiently watching his insignificant actions. The guy also thinks about what the lady is thinking about, because he cannot understand what emotions are on her face. The woman at this time claims that members of the imperial family do not learn fencing. Accordingly, swordsmanship had always been something distant to him. He realized he was trying to use the most primitive movements possible. Could she have fallen for his deception? The woman at this time claims that he does have potential, and she also can't let such talent go to waste, after which the woman asks what he thinks about it, and also whether he wants to formally study fencing. The young man understands that he cannot believe it, since he received such an offer so easily, and the guy wonders if she really fell for it. Well, then he understands that this is definitely a test. Valencian wonders what benefit he will get from agreeing, since he hates sweating. His interlocutor claims that there is no need to jump to conclusions, because she is sure that he will enjoy fencing. The young man immediately says that it is not necessary, and thanks her, but claims that he would prefer to relax and enjoy life. The woman says that she still hates the thought that she is depriving her loved one, so tomorrow he will be visiting the training ground and training with the Platinum Knights. The guy at that very moment cries out to Her Majesty, begging her not to do this. Well, in his thoughts, he understands that everything worked, and now he can calmly show off his sword skills. A little while later, he is already on the training ground. The guy realizes that there is lush greenery there, and also the singing of birds. And he's wearing training armor and uniform, even though it's summer. The training armor itself weighs 35 kilos, and the uniform an additional 20. The young man at that very moment cries out to His Majesty, asking why she sent him there. Tentia. He tells the guy to move, because even if there was a 5-year-old child there, he would have overtaken him. The young man understands that this was an excellent opportunity for them to master the imperial fencing techniques developed by J. Lilith. But when he is engaged in hellish training, he realizes that he has completely forgotten that swordsmanship training begins with physical training. A little while later, the young man was already lying on the ground, exhausted. He wonders if he will really fall into eternal sleep like this, but at that very moment, someone else turns to his lordship, and she asks if he's already exhausted, to which the guy cries out that he did say that physical labor is not for him. The woman replies that in any case, he needs to warm up, otherwise tomorrow, he won't even be able to move. The young man wonders if they are finished yet, after which he looks at the lady and understands that in a past life, Tentia was slandered and exiled from the palace, after which she met Justion and pledged to be his right hand. In the distant future, she even became the 10th swordmaster in the empire. The guy understands that this time he'll make sure that she is on his side. But the incident is no longer imminent, so it's time to act. The guy approaches Lady Tentia and claims to have a bottle of wasteland tears. Given to her by Her Majesty, he therefore asks if she would agree to share this drink with him. The woman asks if he is talking about the tears of the wasteland, and that this is the very wine that cannot be bought for any money. Her interlocutor replies that this is exactly it, because it is sweet like time and fragrant like youth, and also has a taste unimaginable for those who have not tried it. Valencian. He says that it is his job to propose, but the woman turns to his lordship, and she says that now she will just quickly wash off the sweat and immediately return. The main character replies that it's good and understands that it worked. A little while later, they are already in the palace of the Scarlet Halo. The day has finally come when she will taste the tears of the wasteland, after which she knocks on the Duke's door and apologizes for the delay. When the woman comes in, the main character replies with a smile on his face that it's okay. He also invites Mrs. Tentia to come in and sit down. Tentia. She claims that she brought snacks that go well with the wine. The young man claims that she is so thoughtful. The woman then asks if he always uses candles, and if this table looks a little strange, to which he replies that lately his eyes have been hurting from the bright light. The young man also pours wine into a glass and offers the lady to drink it before the aroma dissipates. What the woman agrees to, and when she tries this wine, then he immediately becomes delighted and claims that it smells so nice, and the taste and aroma simply melt on the tongue as if they were in her mouth. But the main character blocks her and asks if she is talking about shining stars and croaking fire. The guy also understands that it seems like it's time and suggests that the lady wait a little. After all, he will return now, to which the woman agrees. She takes another sip of wine and thinks what a joy this is. Well, at that very moment, she hears someone heading towards the room and then opens the door. The red-haired lady asks in shock if these are the Black Knights, and the commander of the order turns to Lady Tentia and then screams that she was arrested for stealing an imperial artifact, which makes the woman surprised. At this time, the man is wondering where the Duke is, because he must immediately take her into custody. But at that very moment, someone else comes up to them and asks what this boil is about. These two, seeing the state the guy is in, are shocked and don't even know what to say. The young man wonders who dared to interrupt their solitude, and the two wonder why the hell he is looking like that. The other knights immediately turn to His Majesty. The order's commander cries out that this is unforgivable. The young man asks if they really have any problems considering these are his chambers. Well, at that very moment, the commander of the order remembers something and claims that there are more important things to do now. He immediately cries out to His Highness and claims that Lady Tentia has been recognized as the prime suspect in the theft of the imperial artifact, so she needs to go with him immediately. But the young man is interested in what they are talking about, because right after training Mrs. Tentia, I investigated in his room. The guy also asks if they don't understand that she didn't have time to steal, much less hide the artifact, but his interlocutor replies that this is not true. He also claims that the palace is huge, and the thief could have handed over the stolen artifact to a middleman. The Duke says that in this case, he recommends that they go as soon as possible to search for the one who now has the artifact. Instead of chasing after Mrs. Tentia, who has nothing, the guy also claims that Her Majesty must be furious now, least someone as soon as possible. Well, he also claims that they are all knights, so why suspect your own people? Valencian. He claims that there is no need to act rashly, after which his interlocutor sighs. He also says that the gentleman's words are not without common sense, and he did not present himself in the best light, to which the guy replies that this is true. The commander of the order at this time claims that it seems that the rumors about the Duke's shamelessness are false, because he is quite perceptive. At this time, the young man understands that this is already a problem, because he is too fixated on protecting Tentia, after which he asks if they still need anything there, and approaching the knight, he whispers that he not only spoiled the atmosphere, but also made a lot of noise. He asks what he is talking about, and his interlocutor asks if he can even imagine how difficult it was to be alone with Countess Tentia. The commander of the order asks what the Duke is talking about, but when he looks at the appearance of his interlocutor, and also at the table with wine and candles, then he immediately understands everything and whispers to the Duke that this is what he meant when he spoke about solitude. The protagonist smiles in response to this, causing the knight to move away in disgust. He also tells His Highness that he understands everything. The man also turns to Mrs. Tentia and tells her to be so kind and not change her place of residence, for now, to which she agrees. The commander at this time asserts that he is deviating from this and asks for forgiveness for having intruded so unceremoniously, to which the main character says yes, and that they should hurry. When they leave, the young man realizes that he can finally relax. But at the same moment, someone else addresses the guy, and when he turns around, he realizes that it is Tentia. The woman claims that she could not even imagine that it was a gentleman, but the young man asks what she is talking about and wonders what the lady means. The lady at this time says that he was waiting for his partner, and she should have guessed earlier, after which she even asserts that she will hurry to leave him and thanks the Duke for the evening, after which she even wishes him a good time. But when the guy tries to stop her, then the lady just runs away, after which the young man thinks that, anyway, it doesn't matter. The next day, the guy is already heading down the corridor, and a little while later, he sees Rudy. The guy greets her, and the lady says that Mr. Valencian has returned. The young man asks what kind of flowers these are, and his interlocutor replies that she picked them near the main palace this morning. She also asks if they are really beautiful, and Valencian asks why she went to the main palace, to which the girl replies that her friend works there, and he asked her to help send a package out of town. The lady also says that it seems that the gentleman is also in a good mood today, and frankly, he has looked depressed lately. The guy replies that he managed to save a man from undeserved exile. The end yet. But it doesn't matter, because one way or another, it is not up to him to look for the real culprit. The maid replies that she doesn't know what it's about, but she's happy for the master. After which, her interlocutor asks if the girl has heard anything about the disappearance of an artifact in the palace, to which the maid replies that yes, he suddenly told her about it. They say that the tip of the giant Ulgrim has disappeared. The boy thinks about this tip and realizes that a giant named Ulgrim wanted to see the whole world. He traveled and drew maps of the lands he visited. Ulgrim enchanted the tip of the pen so that it could draw a map of the past path on its own. One day, the cave where Ulgrim was staying collapsed, and only the iron tip of the pen survived. He still keeps ancient magic within himself, after which the guy says that the tip of Ulgrim must have disappeared. In the main palace, there are no other family members besides the Empress, so the butlers and maids fall under suspicion. He thinks that one of the servants took him to, which the maid replies that she agrees. The guy says that if he were the criminal, he wouldn't have taken the artifact outside the palace. I would ask a friend to help some maid who can freely leave the yard, and he would pass it off as an urgent parcel. But at that very moment, the young man realizes what he just said. And then he asks Rudy if she said that she sent some kind of package this morning. The girl then trembles in fear and tells his lordship that this needs to be reported. She also claims that he should do it, and the young man asks what she means. The girl claims that he could be accused of stealing the artifact given his reputation, and if they find out that she delivered this package, then misunderstandings may arise. But at that very moment, the main character grabs the maid by the hands and screams for her to pull herself together. He also suggests that she not worry because he will figure it out. And then the guy asks what her friend's name is. The girl replies that his name is Benton, and that he is the butler of the West Wing, after which the young man says that it's good, and he understands, and also asks if she can carry out one of his assignments. The maid asks what it is, and a little while later, the guy is already in the West Wing. The young man also wonders if this is the servants' room and listens to what is happening inside. One of the servants asks what they should do now, and the other replies that he doesn't know, because what kind of reckless idiot would you have to be to comprehend the artifact? His interlocutor also claims that it was possible to steal something insignificant like him. But now they will all be plunged into eternal sleep because of one idiot, so he wonders who did it. The protagonist sighs and realizes that these thieves are too talkative, after which he immediately opens the door and enters the room. The servants are shocked and ask if this is the Duke of Valenciennes, and the main character is interested in which of the three of them is Benton, because they need to talk alone. One of the servants sitting on the bed raises his hand and claims that it is him, after which the servants look at him in surprise, and the Duke claims that he did say that he wanted to talk to him alone, after which the others leave, and Valenciennes says that since they have already left, they can get straight to the point. The man asks who dragged the guy into this, and he claims that he doesn't understand what this is about, gentlemen. Valenciennes at the same moment uses a sharp piercing flame, and at that very moment, the servant takes something out of his pocket, after which the main character notices it. He immediately knocks the thing out of the guy's hands and screams at him to stop right now. The servant immediately falls to the floor, and the protagonist claims that for the sake of entertainment, he appropriated state funds and even set his sights on the artifact. So does he really think he can get away with it? But then the guy smiles, and Valenciennes asks, "What's funny?" The servant claims that he thought the Duke was a cold-blooded man, since he even sold out his cousins, but he is surprisingly sentimental. The guy also claims that he is not going to plunge into eternal sleep alone, and he knows that Rudy's life is in his hands. But the Duke wonders if he really thinks that he will sit idly by. His interlocutor asks what he will do, and whether His Highness really has knights under his command, to which he replies with a grin that there is, but his interlocutor only laughs and asks who would follow a man like him. At that very moment, someone bursts into the room and kicks down the door. It turns out to be a lady with red hair, and she screams that she heard that the one who set her up is now there. The young man cries out in shock, "Is this really the Knight Tentia?" And the woman turns to His Highness the Duke, after which he claims that she is just in time. The guy also tells the lady to take care of this servant. Well, the woman agrees, and her interlocutor then suggests that they discuss everything first. Well, the lady screams at him to be quiet. At that very moment, someone else enters the room. It turns out to be a maid, and she turns to his lordship and claims that the lady knight rushed so quickly. The girl also addresses the gentleman and claims she's so sorry because she caused him trouble, unaware of what a scoundrel he is. Her interlocutor replies that she's not to blame, as the world is full of deception. This servant was originally going to use it, so there is no point in worrying. Rudy then turns to the gentleman and claims that she thought they were friends, which is why it hurts her so much. At this time, the guy looks out the window and sees that there are black knights there. He also turns to Rudy and claims that it is time for her to leave, to which the girl agrees. Valencian also turns to Mrs. Tentia and says that this is enough, but the woman cries out that under no circumstances will she make this guy fully regret what he did. However, the main character grabs her hand and cries out that there are more important things to do now. After all, it's all over if the Black Knights catch them, so they need to find the artifact as quickly as possible. The young man also understands that there is only one place where he can make a dubious deal with stolen goods. A little while later, they are already near this place, and the young man opens the door. The red-haired lady immediately smells the stench of stagnant water and asks his lordship where they are going. The guy smiles after this and asks what she thinks, after which he welcomes her into the Imperial Underground waterways. The woman claims that this is the first time she has heard of them, after which she asks where this path leads to, which the guy replies that it leads straight to the slums. From there, they will be able to get to a place where trade in all sorts of dubious and unsafe contraband converges. To which his interlocutor replies that it is clear, but asks how he knows about underground waterways, since she doubts that the Duke has ever been outside the palace walls. The guys answer that she doesn't need to know this. And by the way, he's interested in whether the lady really hasn't heard anything about them at all. Underground waterways are hidden from prying eyes and cover the entire capital. This is why they are convenient to use for the illegal transportation of magical tools and artifacts. And this is the shortest route from the palace to the casino, after which the woman screams to His Highness, "What kind of obscenity is this?" The girl understands that there is nothing suspicious about this, and the guy is simply a wealthy person. The young man watches her reaction at this time, then turns around and sighs. The guy also wonders if she's let her guard down. A little while later, the woman is already wondering how much longer she has to go. This place is like a labyrinth, and it is difficult to navigate there. But at that moment, the young man turns the corner and claims that they have arrived. The lady sees a staircase in front of her, and then wonders what kind of place this is. Valencian. He claims that he will go first, and the lady will wait there until he calls and agrees to something. After which, the guy starts to climb up and hears someone talking there, and also understands, judging by the voices, there are about 3 people there. After which, the young man climbs into this room and closes the door behind him. The people who were there looked at him in shock and screamed, "Who the hell is he?" Valencian takes out his sword, and the guys scream at him, saying how ugly he is, and run at him with daggers. But the main character deftly cuts them down and then points the blade of his sword at the last one. And he also wonders if they are still interested in his personality. The man immediately falls to his knees and screams, begging him to spare him, because he will do anything. Valencian. He claims that they should have received a parcel about 3 days ago, about the size of 2 palms, and he asks if he has seen one like that. To which the man replies that yes, and it was in light brown packaging, but their boss personally came to pick it up. The Duke then asks where their boss is. Now his interlocutor replies that he is in the slums, because they have a shelter there. After this, the guy says how interesting it is, and a little while later, he is already heading to the slums. He and the lady with red hair follow this man. As the woman moves on, she steps in mud. She also addresses his lordship and tells him to be careful. The road's condition leaves much to be desired. Looking around, the guy realizes things are even worse than he thought. So we'll have to figure this out. At that moment, someone bumps into the guy they were following, and she also screams at him to watch where he's going, and the man immediately asks for forgiveness. Valencian tells him to be more careful, after which he agrees with the master and asks him to forgive him. A little while later, he already says that they are there, and the lady with red hair says that finally. The man who was seeing them off says that he will go then, but at that very moment, Valencian grabs him, and he says what a small parasite he is because he set up an ambush in the shelter. The main character also wonders if the guy who pushed him was from his gang, after which the main character turns to the knight Tentia, and the woman replies that it will be done. The man sitting on the ground screams that he made a mistake and begs the master for mercy. But Tentia cleverly deals with him. Valencian understands that these are vile people, but then he takes his sword out of its sheath and also realizes that he has to thank them since they decided to play into his hands. At this time, one of the people in ambush looks out through the crack in the door, but at that very moment, he is pierced by a sword. It turns out that this is the main character, after which the guy claims that he should have thought twice before twitchings. The young man immediately opens the door, after which the rest of the people in ambush prepare to attack. The guy immediately uses an explosive flickering flame, and the thieves ask if it is magic, to which the young man with a smile on his face replies that yes, and it is magic, after which he launches it at them. When an explosion occurs there, the guy just leaves, and when he approaches Tentia, the woman looks at all these villains and then wonders what happened there, to which the guy replies that it seems like something really hot happened there, but he doesn't think she should worry about it. Valencian also states that he will check and return immediately, so let her wait there, to which the woman agrees. When the guy walks through the mansion, he thinks where the boss is, but at that very moment, a dagger flies at him, and the young man dodges it. The man who threw this is about to throw an axe as well, and also screams for this scoundrel to fall into eternal sleep. Valencian understands that this person seems to be on something, after which he keeps kicking him. The man then falls, and Valencian finishes him off, after which he looks at one of the doors and realizes that the boss must be there. The guy immediately kicks down the door and then screams, "Is it really all this man can do to hide like a thief rat?" Valencian examines the room and then sees one of the thieves guarding the closet and realizes that it looks like the thing he needs is there. This man claims that a man with such abilities came there, after which he asks what gang he is from. But the guy just suggests that they stop chatting and shut up and wait. The young man understands that there is no point in holding back because the time has come to show himself at full strength, after which he uses level 1 of Imperial Fencing and deftly cuts down his enemies. The young man also notices that his mana is being used up faster than he thought, and that it was unwise to use that technique in this young body. After which the guy looks at the man who is standing near the closet and shaking. Valencian asks why he doesn't run away, and the man replies that even a fool would understand that there is no escaping such a swordsman. The main character says yes, and let him open his eyes, because the Duke of Valencian is in front of him. The man immediately falls to his knees and asks His Highness the noble Duke what brought him to such a humble place. The young man replies that a parcel was supposed to arrive there, which he wants to return, after which the guy goes to the closet and asks if she is there. But at that very moment, the man grabs an axe, and he screams out something, after which the main character turns around and stabs him. The thief, with the last of his strength, grabs the Duke by the leg, and then asks him not to open the door. The young man thinks what could be there, but when he opens the closet, then he sees a person there and wonders if this is the boss's daughter. The young man realizes that she saw something she shouldn't have, after which he throws her a bag of money and offers to take it. The guy claims that this will be enough for at least one time, after which the girl takes him. She comes out of the closet and thanks him for his mercy. The young man understands that after what happened, the light in her eyes did not go out. He also claims that the Order of the Black Knights will arrive there soon, so she should run quickly before she gets caught. The girl thanks His Excellency for his help, and the young man replies that he has no idea what she is talking about since he had no plans to help her. The lady states that she will take this into account, and it would be impolite on her part to jump to conclusions about His Highness's intentions, after which the girl says that she will go, and the guy just screams for her to disappear already. The young man watching the lady leave understands that despite her submissiveness, she cannot be called stupid, and perhaps they will meet again. But then the guy realizes that he needs to return to the purpose of the visit. He takes one of the paintings off the wall, and then sees a safe behind it, and thinks how expected this is. The guy takes the key from the robber's pocket, then opens the safe and takes one of the boxes. He opens it and wonders what it is, but then realizes that it is low-grade medicine. The young man also wonders if these are the substances that are now walking around the slums, after which he begins to rummage further and realizes that the required parcel must definitely be somewhere there. Then the guy finally finds it, and realizes that it definitely has Rudy's signature on it. The young man also understands that he needs to destroy all evidence and burns everything that was included with the package. At that moment, Tentia runs into the room and worriedly asks His Highness if he is injured. The woman claims that a girl came out, which made it clear that something had happened. The guy then says he's glad to see Countess Tentia again. The woman sees the artifact in His Highness's hands and says that he found it. The young man replies that it goes without saying and wonders how it could be otherwise. But when he looks at the expression on his interlocutor's face, he says that she doesn't know how to lie. Valencian also tells her to report what happened and that in the end, everything worked out thanks to her. The woman asks, "What do you mean? He was the one who found the arrowhead, so how can it be her fault?" At this time, the young man asks if it is true that he can report this and receive a reward. But he will receive money for the entertainment, after which the woman snatches this artifact. And she thanks his lordship and also states that she will immediately report what happened. The guy understands that in front of him is a knight who will one day become a master of the sword, and that her mere presence as the empress will be enough to support the empire. A little while later, the young man is already heading down the corridor, after which he goes into one of the rooms and thinks why the empress called him. The guy looking around realizes that this room resembles a greenhouse. At the same moment, the woman turns to Valencian and says that he has arrived. She also claims to have been waiting for him. The young man immediately bows and asserts that he bows his head before Her Majesty the Empress. Salilit claims that Knight Tentia reported to her what happened, and according to her, he made an invaluable contribution. After this, the young man asks if this is true and thinks how damned these knights are. But the woman should have simply taken and appropriated all the laurels for herself. Valencian claims that Lady Tentia is not lacking in modesty. The Empress replies that she does not think so, after which she turns to the Grand Duke of Valencia, and the young man understands that he is finished because this time it is definitely a death sentence. The guy immediately falls to his knees and cries out to Her Majesty, asking her to have mercy on him. But the woman replies that he is too valuable to rot in the palace of the Scarlet Halo. The young man wonders what she is talking about, after which the lady replies that she will appoint him to the position of executioner and will consult with him from time to time. The protagonist asks if he will really be the executioner and wonders if she is doing this so that she can keep an eye on him from a close distance. The Empress asks if he remembers his 5 half-brothers who wanted to put her into eternal sleep, for which they paid with their own lives. But he, on the contrary, wanted to save her when he caught the maid who intended to poison her, to which the guy replies that yes. The woman replies that when she looked through the materials of the investigation into the brothers' case, she realized that they were all hypocrites. But he was always sincere, and only her brother did not try to put her into eternal sleep. Surprised by this, and the woman replies that she understood this. She felt relieved. Valencian understands that this is true because Jalilit was only 17 then. At that age, it was more than necessary for her to have the support of a relative, after which the young man thanks Her Majesty and asserts that he is approximately grateful for the generous opportunity provided to take the post of executioner and will do everything possible to live up to her expectations. The woman replies that if he works poorly, his head will roll off his shoulders, to which he agrees, and a little while later, the guy is already getting ready to go somewhere. The maid tells the master that she is very sorry because he had to go to such a place because of her, and she can't forgive herself for it. The Duke tells her not to worry because all's well that ends well, and he became an executioner thanks to her. After this, the maid turns to the gentleman with emotion, but still asks where he is going at night. The guy replies that he's going to catch the magician. A short time later, he arrives at the Casino of Hope. The young man understands that this is it, after which he puts on a mask and thinks that it's time to get down to business. A little while later, he already goes inside, but at that very moment, someone else addresses him, and he tells the kindest man that entry with weapons is prohibited. The woman also bows and greets the Grand Duke. The young man claims he thought it was customary to keep the identities of guests confidential, to which she replies that there are always exceptions to the rules, and the man asks how she recognized him. The woman claims that by his dazzling silver hair and golden eyes visible from under the mask, no matter how he hides himself, anyone will recognize by the appearance bestowed by the royal red liquid that he belongs to the genus Solitaris. The main character understands that this woman is smart and also insightful, after which the guys claim that he is looking for one person. The lady says that she is listening to him, and the guy replies that he is looking for someone famous, and he thinks that she has heard about him, but she's familiar with the nickname the Nightmare of Riches. The woman screams that the entire nearby casino is on the brink of bankruptcy because of her, and it's all true after all she got to their casino. The main character says to be taken to this lady, and he will take care of everything. Then the woman claims that she will immediately take him to the VIP lounge. The woman is in the VIP room at this time and claims that she is betting everything, after which the casino worker tells the lady to open her cards, and she hands over the joker. After which the worker says that the victory is hers, and the woman smiles and takes all the chips for herself. At the same moment, the main character approaches his sister. Sariraz greets her. The woman asks if it is Valencian, and the guy replies that it is as expected. She recognized him even under the mask, but the woman was only interested in what brought him there. He forbade her to practice magic, get an education, and learn fencing, so let him just not say that he will take away gambling too. However, the main character tells his sister not to jump to conclusions because he just wanted to see her. And besides, they are in the same boat, and he too cannot engage in magic study and fencing. The lady then asks if he should give up everything just because of his origin, but he replies that he doesn't think so. However, he also turns to his sister and claims that the substances are too much. The woman asks what he is talking about, and the man claims that recently there has been a widespread distribution of substances in the slums. He also wonders if she really wants to say that it wasn't her doing. The guy also claims that there is a fairly well-known rumor about a magician who has lost his magic, who was addicted to gambling and alcohol, so he took up substances. Valencian. He claims that he has a proposal, and the woman asks what it is, after which the guy claims that her loyalty is needed, and let the lady swear allegiance to Her Majesty the Empress. The young man understands that he must convince her, otherwise she will do it again, will side with Justin just like in his past life. At this time, the woman talks about devotion and wonders if this is really his proposal. At this time, the young man shows the casino worker that she should leave and then suggests that the lady give up drugs and stop betting and come back. Her Majesty will have mercy on her, and she can forgive everything except treason. After this, the woman talks about treason, and the guy understands that his sister is a genius magician, but she has no equipment or magical tools, but he has a sword. And that's already something. At this time, the girl asks what if she refuses, and the guy understands that she uses sparkling magic without a tool and without saying spells. You have been yours for 20 years. The young man at that very moment screams for his sister. I waited and calmed down. Well, the woman replies that she can swear to anything but fidelity. After this, the young man understands that things are bad because he is not in an advantageous position, but still, the boy draws his sword from its sheath. The Empress is in her office at this time, a Valencian into eternal sleep. The woman replies that if it turns out that he has ulterior motives, then he won't have to choose. But the girl also claims that she is not one of those, and her interlocutor is interested in whether the Duke is recommending a member of the imperial family to her. And also, will she trust the one who enjoys his favor? After which the woman asks what he means. And does he really dare to think that he will palm off a relative on her, and this will never happen? After which the girl says that this is for sure, and he will never do that. At this time, the young man looks at his opponent and understands that in the future, she will become a great magician, so he is obliged to bring her to Jalilith. His sister at this time claims that it seems that the Empress took a fancy to him for some reason, and that it was she who sent him. After which the woman also says that she can guess, and that she probably sent the guy to eliminate her. But before the main character can answer, the woman screams at him to stop because they have nothing else to talk about. After which she completely releases her magic, and the young man dodging realizes that she is truly strong. Therefore, you need to be on your guard. And there is only one way to resist a lightning mage with a sword. After which, the guy uses level 1 Imperial Fencing, but realizes that this is not enough. The young man also understands that he needs more power, and his sister claims that the meeting was short-lived, but she was glad to see him, after which the lady directs her magic at him, and the guy understands that he will succeed, after which he reflects her spell. The woman, shocked, asks if he has really become a sword master. The young man cries out that only by being one can he influence his sister's fate. The girl then uses another spell and places stone chains on her brother. The guy understands what it means that she used earth magic, and the girl freely controls 2 elements at this age. And even the shadow spear is subject to her control, after which the lady coughs up red liquid and then falls completely. Valencian, she understands that she too has her limits. Although using magic without a staff is already admirable, the young man begins to use a sharp, piercing flame, after which he breaks free from her chains. The woman watches this in shock and then asks what kind of nonsense this is and where he learned to do this. But the guy asks how she can handle this, and it answers something pretty well. From the looks of it, you'd think he'd been training in mana control for over 40 years. Valencian, he realizes that she hit the nail on the head, after which he asks if she is now ready to listen to him, to which the woman replies that she does not, and beginning to cast another spell, asserts that she does not obey anyone. The guy dodges this spell and then asks his sister to listen because he came to save her. The girl replies that she doesn't need it, and can't he just leave her alone? The young man immediately screams that no, because if everything continues like this, the guys from the casino will try to eliminate her. His interlocutor, shocked, asks what he's talking about, and the guy asks if she won a lot of chips and doesn't exchange them often. The woman replies that yes, and she has a bunch of others besides these, but she wonders if this is really so bad. Her interlocutor replies that of course it's bad, because the casino will go bankrupt, when out of the blue she demands to exchange all those chips. For them, she is like a time bomb. And when he sees his sister's gaze, then he asks if she has come to her senses now, and answers that she probably has. But at that very moment, someone cries out to his lordship and claims that he needs to leave immediately because thugs from another casino have arrived. At this time, the guy is wondering if they really have already placed the thugs so quickly, and the woman screams at him to run away quickly because there are at least 100 of them there. His sister wonders if there really are only 100, since her magic can quickly deal with this. But the protagonist replies that if he doesn't answer them now, he won't be able to withstand the battle. The Duke also says that they should get rid of all the substances if they are hidden in their casino, because soon the imperturbable order of Black Knights will arrive there to inspect. The woman says that this is such valuable information, and thanks His Highness, and the guy understands that having allies in the gaming district won't hurt, after which he turns to his sister and says that they need to go because they don't have time. A little while later, when they want to go down the stairs, they see their opponents, and they scream that this girl is running away, so she needs to be captured. One of them also flashes so that the others can see because the traitor is also there. He cries out, "Did the rat really think that she would put on a mask and that no one would recognize her? But she is definitely in cahoots with this sorceress." The main character, looking at these people, understands that there are too many of them, after which her sister turns to him. She asks if the guy promises to save her, to which he replies, of course. After all, the loss of such a sorceress would be too great a damage to the Empire. The girl then turns around and thanks him. She also claims that if she uses filled mana, she will definitely have a hard time. But there is no other way out, and the young man understands what this spell formula is, after which he tells the sister to wait. The woman tells him not to worry, because she is taking responsibility for herself, after which she begins to cast a spell, and all the guys scream that she is calling on magic, after which they run away. The protagonist realizes that it is too late, after which the girl finishes her spell and directs it at the enemies. The casino worker watches this in shock when one of the lightning bolts almost hits her. The main character reflects it, but he can barely withstand the pressure and understands that this is an unimaginable power. A little while later, the guy looks at the destroyed casino and realizes that this is serious damage, after which his sister falls unconscious. The young man immediately runs to his sister and asks if she's okay, and the woman turns to Valencian and asks if he will really vouch for her and whether he will allow her to lead the life of a magician. The guy then replies that, of course, and claims that she can count on him, after which the lady notes that it's good. She also says that this is what it means to be mortal. A short time later, the young man stands before the Empress. The woman places the papers on the table and then claims that she has carefully read the Duke of Valenciennes' report. She also wonders if this means he wants to recommend a talented magician to her. The young man replies that everything is so, because he is sure that this lady will not disappoint Her Majesty. The woman then asks if this lady is from the Cererise plant, to which she replies that yes. The woman claims she heard the lady was an outstanding student at Lightning Tower School and is interested in what other accomplishments she can boast of there. The girl replies that she can use 4th circle lightning magic and 3rd circle earth magic without casting spells out loud. She also has the Emperor's red fluid flowing through her, and like Her Majesty, she has special ways of handling mana, which differ from the usual magic circle, after which the woman says that she cannot simply trust it. After all, the girl is the bearer of the right to the throne, since only red liquid flows in their veins. And besides, the magic in her seems quite pure. Valenciennes immediately turns to Her Majesty and asserts that he understands her doubts, but asks her to reconsider. The young man wonders if a nobleman can exist without a single drop of the imperial red liquid, and whether plunging one person into eternal sleep will not rid him of his problems. The guy also wonders if she really wants to hastily trample on an unblown flower, after which the young man completely begs to let him show his usefulness and devotion, and the woman in response to this only remains silent. The main character wonders if this really works, after which he claims that they have prepared something else. The young man points to the box that the maid brings and understands that this should finally convince her. When this bag is opened, chips are visible inside, and the Empress asks what it is. And her interlocutor replies that these are chips from all the casinos of the Empire, and she has about 200 such bags. Therefore, if you exchange them all, the result will be an exorbitant amount. Cererise turns to Her Majesty and claims that if the Empress generously agrees to accept the winnings from her chips, then half of the amount from them will be sent to the Imperial Treasury. After this, Célilit claims that she hopes the lady will not disappoint her. Well, of course she didn't make the decision because of money, and the main character understands that it's clear as day that it's because of them. The woman then turns to Cererise and claims that she will grant her the right to follow the path of magic. Let her strive for knowledge and become the pride of the Empire. The girl then says that Her Majesty's mercy is boundless. The main character watching this smiles and understands that everything ended well for Cererise and J-Lilith. The woman at this time says that now she wants to talk about the Duke of Valenciennes, after which she asks how he managed to attract such a powerful magician to his side. The young man is a little scared by this and doesn't even know what to answer. At this time, the woman shows that Cererise is free, and she bows and then leaves. At this time, the Empress once again turns to the Duke and asserts that she is interested in him. After all, a sorceress of such a level intended to hide, and he took her there, and clearly without force. The main character understands that he needs to calm down, because the lady is just interested, after which he claims that he came to the casino to play and met Cererise there, who was in despair and yearned for magic, and he also thinks that the lady went with him because of the hope he gave her to return to the study of magic. The Empress at this time claims that she does not understand how the girl trusted a man with such a terrible reputation. The main character smiles after this and claims that although his reputation is not the best, but Her Majesty spared his life, Ceres trusted her more than him. The woman then claims that he knows how to win people over to his side. She also claims that in 4 days, Marquis Flanthius will visit there with his wife. He expressed a desire to shelter one of her cousins and Valenciennes, and wonders if that moment has already come. The Marquis was such a nobleman that in terms of power, he could be compared to the ruler of the state. The emperor's concubine, and she fell into eternal sleep during childbirth, giving birth to a son named Aquinas. Flanthius, overcome with grief, decided to establish this child. One day while returning home, the Marquis's family was ambushed by thugs. The Marquis and Aquinas were plunged into eternal sleep on the spot, and in a fit of anger, Flanthius blamed the imperial family for all the troubles and raised a rebellion. This marked the beginning of a civil war in the empire that lasted for quite a long time, after which the guy thinks about how to prevent it and claims that he will take care of it. Flanthius's journey will be quiet and safe. The Empress replies that this is excellent, and this is the answer she was counting on, after which the woman turns to the service, and he claims that from today on, Lady Tentia will serve the Duke as his personal knight. The young man is a little surprised by this, after which Tentia enters the room. The woman immediately bows and states that she has been honored to become a knight, accompanying his lordship. The protagonist realizes that it seems the girl has attracted the attention of Her Majesty, after which he smiles at her and realizes that he is glad that he now has his own knight. The guy immediately bows before Her Majesty and thanks her, and also affirms that using the power entrusted to him, he will continue to work tirelessly. The woman replies that this is wonderful and states that she looks forward to his further success. And also, to be honest, he always finds a way to surprise her so that she will continue to watch, and she is sure that he will not disappoint her. The protagonist replies that yes, and a little while later, someone bows before the Duke, and he also screams, asking to save his child. It turns out to be Duke Aquinas. The guy asks if he is really talking about this child, and his interlocutor replies that everything is correct, and this is his unregistered child. The Duke at this time wonders if he really has an unregistered child, at a time when even adoption brings risks, and nothing happens without a hitch. The young man then cries out that the imperial red liquid is being watched so closely that the birth of an illegitimate child could be considered treason, and the parents in such a case would face execution along with their child. Told again that his position is now also in jeopardy, Tentia asks him to calm down, after which the man thanks her, and the Duke only asks her to save his child, and he will raise him quietly. Valencian wonders what guarantees there are that the child won't one day rebel, but his interlocutor cries out what kind of nonsense this is, after which the Duke suggests that he never say never. Even if this child has no intentions, someone can take advantage of him, with the aim of rebellion, and the man does not even know what she will answer. Valencian claims that he will follow the law and suppress the beginnings of rebellion. Therefore, let him not hinder his decision to eliminate this child. Well, his interlocutor immediately grabs the Duke by the leg and then screams out something else. He begs him not to do this and asks if there is no other way out. Tentia asks His Majesty if everything is really so dire, after which the man claims that there is one way, and Aquinas asks which one, after which the guy claims that it is possible to forge a birth certificate. If the child is registered not as the child of a duke, but as the son of a marquise, then you can avoid trouble. The guy then asks how to forge a birth certificate, and his interlocutor replies that he can announce the birth of a child when he becomes the Marquis of the Flanthius family, and then they recognize him as their family member. The man then, with a smile on his face, says that this is the solution. He also picks up his child and claims that he was unable to protect his mother, but he will still be able to protect his child because he is the fruit of his love. Aquinas also turns to Valencian and claims that Eugenia is the reason he will never forget his mercy, to which the protagonist replies that he is not worth the gratitude. Tentia at this time approaches Aquinas and says what a relief it is. Well, at that moment, the main character is a little surprised and thinks, what if old Marcus Flanitius also knows about the illegitimate child? The guy understands that if everything is really like this, then the situation is fundamentally different. It seemed to him that this was a touching family reunion, but what if this was part of the Marquis's plan to ignite a civil war? Flanthius takes Aquinas away with her, enraged by the news of a secret heir. Jalet sends mercenaries to kill them, and then the Marquis raises a rebellion using the incident as a pretext. But would Jalet have put the child into eternal sleep, knowing that Flanitius would turn it to his advantage? The guy understands that it seems his primary goal is to find out about the Marquis's intentions. A little while later, they are already on the street. Aquinas looks at the sky and wonders why the master hasn't arrived yet. But at that very moment, the main character notices something in the sky, and someone claims that the Marquis then tied the dragons they had flown in onto the ground with his servants. The Marquis approaches the Duke and states that he is pleased to meet him. He also introduces himself, and the main character shakes his hand and says that the feeling is mutual. The guy turns around and wonders if the man noticed his nephew. But at that very moment, the Marquis turns to him, and when he sees him, he cries out joyfully. The States are his nephew after all. He also talks about how big the boy has grown and claims that he is so happy that his sister's son will become his ward. After which, the man turns to the others and asks what is going on with the renunciation of the succession to the throne. Valencian and Tentia look at this change in mood in shock. The woman claims that the Empress and the Duke of Valencia signed with the Duke of Acquaintance all the necessary papers, and they will come into force tonight. After this, the man asks if the guy really managed to do it alone, and if he is such a good guy. The main character wonders if he has really imagined too much. It seems that the Marquis is just a stupid loving uncle. But now there is no time for thinkings, after which he turns to Acquaintance and suggests that he hurry to tell everything. The guy then turns to the gentleman and says that he needs to know something. Well, the man asks what kind of gentleman he is, and let the guy call him uncle, just like in childhood. The young man then turns to his uncle and says that in truth he has an illegitimate child, after which the Duke takes him in his arms and claims that his mother was the victim of an accident. Well, he can't give up the baby. The protagonist watches the Marquis and wonders what his reaction will be. The man then touches the child and says that he can't even believe it, claims with tears in his eyes that their family is growing bigger and bigger, and this even brought tears to his eyes. He also claims that Acquaintance is a good guy, after which the guy thanks his uncle. The protagonist realizes that it seems he really did jump to conclusions, but that's a good thing. He also realizes that, after all, it's a pity, but I'll have to interrupt such a touching scene. The guy turns to his lordship and claims that he has to tell him something. When he inquires about something, the young man asserts that tomorrow it is necessary to enter the child into the register of the capital's church, because after that, he will be able to take him and leave with Aquinas. The young man also understands that it is quite likely that he will refuse, but he still thinks that it will be possible to persuade him later. However, at the same moment, the Marquis says that it is clear that this is how it should be done in order not to create worries for the Empress. He also says that since Valencian is Her Majesty's ward, he asks him to take care of everything. The man also claims that they will then leave tomorrow morning after the ceremony. Valencian wonders if he really agreed so easily, and that he is too pliable, which makes him even more suspicious. At this time, the Marquis asks if he can take the baby in his arms for a short time, to which the boy agrees, after which the main character sees a grin on his face. Thoughts immediately pop into his head about how the Empress will put this man to bed, after which the guy realizes that in his past life, Flanthius started a civil war, so we can't let our guard down. A little while later, they enter the room. When the main character looks at it, he claims that in his search for a place away from the palace, he was able to find only this modest dwelling. The Marquis replies that it's okay because it's quite decent, and the main character wishes them a pleasant stay. Valencian also claims that they will go to their rooms. However, as soon as the guy opens the door, he sees a monster in front of him. The guy immediately closes the door, but when the monster tries to break it down, he realizes that he won't be able to hold it back for long. At that moment, the monster breaks through, and the Duke falls, and the knight immediately runs up to him worriedly. The Marquis immediately runs to the child, and the main character watching this thinks, did they really plan to steal the child in this way? But at that very moment, a man stands in front of him and screams for my lady to be careful, because this creature does not belong to their world. The woman replies that she knows, but at that very moment, the monster tells them to give the child back. Tantia immediately cuts him down, and little centipedes crawl out of his skin, after which the rest begin to chop them up and trample them. Tantia cries out to the Duke, asking if he knows anything about why this creature is there. The young man cries out that he can only say that it was not the Empress who sent him, and that Her Majesty despises such things, after which he asks, "What about the Marquis?" And the man cries out what he means, and also whether the Duke really suspects him yet. The guy replies that no one said anything like that, but it wouldn't hurt to be vigilant. However, at that very moment, a sword blade flashes past his face, after which he runs into a centipede near his head. The Marquis warns the young man to be careful with his words. After all, let him not think that he will remain unpunished if something happens to his wife's son or grandson. The boy understands that he can't allow what happened in his past life to happen again, and perhaps he should put the Marquis into eternal sleep right now. At this time, Tantia turns to his lordship and claims that it seems she has found her weak spot. She then points to the particle and claims that the centipede is desperately trying to hide it. Valencian, he claims that he understood and offers to take the monster away, to which the woman agrees, after which she tells this stupid creature to follow her, and the main character gradually cuts it apart, after which it completely pierces the place where the weak link of this monster is located. When he pierces it, he notices silver powder and realizes that the line of its application resembles a magic circle. Well, at that very moment, the young man notices something energy and also screams for everyone to run away from there because this monster has lightning conductor spells. A second later, a multitude of lightning strikes there and the house is half destroyed. At this time, the Marquis rises and looks at his grandson, but he understands that he's perfectly fine. Acquiesce claims that the basket has a protective barrier and a soundproofing spell placed on it, so everything should be fine, and his interlocutor says, "What a relief." At this time, Tantia turns to His Highness and asserts that it looks like this is not the end, to which the man replies that he thinks she is right. But at that very moment, the building begins to collapse, and Tantia cries out to his lordship, after which he defends him. The Marquis, meanwhile, tries to protect the child and Acquiesce's servants. When the main character looks at a pile of stones, he understands that the further into the forest, the more firewood there is. And the woman asks if the gentleman is safe. Someone else shouts that they are all fine and offers to quickly clear the way, to which the guy agrees and claims that they need to hurry. But at the same moment, the young man feels some kind of energy, and when he turns around, he sees a monster. He asks where the child is and tells them to give him back to him. Valencian asks if this is really a possessed entity. The boy wonders why he needed the child and what goals these monsters are pursuing. At this time, Tantia is wondering how the Duke, who grew up within the walls of the Imperial Palace, could so quickly recognize the possessed entity, after which the possessed entity claims that there is no child there and begins to crawl into beetles. These bugs begin to crawl between the stones, and the main character immediately screams to Acquiesce that a possessed entity has targeted the child, and it has gone in their direction, so they should be on guard. But at that very moment, someone else cries out to his uncle and tells him not to leave. The boy immediately thinks about the Marquis, after which he begins to destroy a pile of stones, and the knight turns to His Highness and claims that it is unsafe. She also says that the ceiling is about to collapse, but the guy replies that it doesn't matter, after which he hits the pile of stones again. When he breaks through a wall of these stones, he immediately climbs in there and thinks that he just needs to make it in time. When he runs up to the Marquis, he realizes that he is wounded, but still fights the entity, after which the monster kicks him. Valencian wonders if the Marquis is really on their side. Also, could he really have been mistaken from the start? The knight then turns to the Lost One and says that his opponent is Itana. The monster then turns to Tantia and attacks her. At this time, Acquiesce turns to Lord Valencian and claims that his sword is covered in poison. The uncle is poisoned, and the aunt has lost consciousness, and the main character thinks that things are bad. After which he sees the Marquis fall and understands that all the symptoms of poisoning are obvious, but the condition is not yet critical. If they hurry and get him to the doctor, he will survive, after which the guy is going to get his sword. But at that same moment, he sees how the monster appears behind Tantia and screams for her to be careful. The main character immediately runs up to her and repels the monster's attack, and also claims that he knows who he is. This entity is the embodiment of malice, cowardice, and envy that crept out of paranoid speculation. At this time, the monster pushes the main character away, and he claims that he is doing it on behalf of the Empress. He orders him to return to the underworld and then stabs the monster. Well, at that very moment, some paws come out of his back, and Acquiesce screams for Mr. Valencian to be careful because there is poison in his legs too. The guy immediately rips off his legs, after which he grows them twice as big. The main character wonders if they have really recovered, and he can't dodge them. But at that very moment, Tantia attacks this creature and asks where he is going. The woman asks if His Highness is okay, and asks him to stand behind her. But at that very moment, the monster launches another attack. The woman repels her, after which he attacks again. The protagonist understands from the book that fire is capable of dealing with regenerating opponents, but he can't use mana in front of everyone, after which everyone sees that this monster is attacking Tantia from behind and screams about it. The monster also manages to attack Valencian, who tries to dodge them, after which the guy screams that he is obliged to save the Marquis' family, come what may. The young man uses a level 2 imperial swordsmanship style called invulnerability. Tantia turns to the Duke in shock and wonders if he has really reached level 2 sword mastery, after which the guy attacks the monster and cuts it down. It cries out that it hurts. Tantia doesn't waste any time and uses the imperial swordsmanship style level 1, after which he runs at the monster, but it has already regenerated, and the main character cuts off its limbs again. Tantia tells him to return to where he came from, that is straight to the underworld, after which he pierces this monster. When it all ends, the guy talks about the fire that he used, but the woman tells the Duke not to worry, after which he claims that she did swear allegiance to him, which surprises the guy a little, after which he thanks her, but he also thinks about where such weakness in his body came from. At the same moment, Acquiesce turns to Mr. Valencian in shock and says that his back is injured, after which the guy understands where this fatigue comes from. Well, before he can do anything, he begins to lose consciousness. A little while later, the young man opens his eyes and wonders if he is really in his room. Looking around, he realizes that this is indeed his sofa and table, after which he sees Jalilit and wonders what she is doing there. At this time, the woman asks whether her beloved has woken up and whether the poison has been successfully neutralized. But the consequences of his actions have not yet passed, so let him rest. At that very moment, the guy rips off the blanket and screams that Valencian is greeting Her Majesty the Empress. The guy immediately falls to his knees and realizes that this is a terrible situation because he is bowing to Jalit while lying in bed, after which he even begins to wonder whether he will see the dawn of tomorrow. The young man closes his eyes, expecting a terrible sentence, but the woman tells him to raise his head. She was just passing by and decided to stop in. Today, the process of renunciation of the succession to the throne was successfully completed. After this, the young man thinks about Acquiesce and wonders what happened to the child. The Empress claims that Marquis Flynicius and his wife will soon set off on their journey. Check something by any chance, and the guy asks how much she is paying. He misheard, but the woman claims that she asked, should he go check something before they leave? Her a little surprised, and his interlocutor asserts that if it's not necessary, then it's not necessary. And the young man at that very moment jumps out of bed and screams that, no, and he will go check. The guy also tells Her Majesty that he will return soon. The woman only smiles after this. The Marquis says that Madame Tantia has done a wonderful job. He also thanks her for protecting their family, and because thanks to her, the ceremony went as smoothly as possible. Another lady then asks how Duke Valencian is, and whether he is okay, because she heard that the poison turned out to be more dangerous than they thought. But at the same moment, the main character cries out to their excellencies and also to Acquiesce. Valencian asks if the process went well and if everything has been settled. The woman at this point says that this is the imperial red liquid and it works wonders. Acquiesce. He says that not all such things are true. This guy himself is particularly tenacious. At this time, the protagonist is interested in how the abdication ceremony went and other things, but his interlocutor suggests that Valenciana calm down. The man also claims that today, this baby was officially recognized as the child of the Marquis of Aquinas, and he is sure that the Duke wanted to know this most of all, after which the main character sighs, and he says that it's as if a weight has been lifted from his shoulders, so he's glad to hear it. However, the Marquis turns to the guy and asks if they can just leave without telling the Empress about the child. The main character, with a smile on his face, replies that there is no need to worry about this. After all, Her Majesty already knows everything. The woman watches this from the window, after which he smiles and says that he tried his best, so he can give them a little time as a reward. A few days later, the protagonist arrives at the independent territory of the Magic Tower. The maid looks around and admires what she sees. She points to the instruments that play by themselves and invites his lordship to take a look, because the instruments move by themselves. The man then says what he sees and asks if the girl would like to take a walk around the area, after which he hands her a bag of money. He tells the girl to buy everything she runs out of, but the woman screams that there is too much there. The Duke says that he doesn't care and let her just try to leave at least 1 penny, otherwise she will be in trouble, after which he says goodbye to the maid, and his sister says that it's as if they left a child on a playground. Valencian says that taking the soft-hearted Rudy on such a dangerous mission is worse than leaving her alone, even though the level of danger is unknown. A little while later, the two are already near the ivory tower, and the woman says that they are there. The guy then says that there is no need to hesitate, and a little while later, they are already in the elevator. Siririse says that this magical item that he so wants to get is a disgrace to the ivory tower. They won't even let him look at it until he proves that he's worthy of it, and the guy says that's why he took his sister with him. She needs to convince her mentor to give him this item, and she is the sorceress Gestarti, Siririse. He says that it's a shame the guy is so carefree about this, because he shouldn't underestimate his mentor. But her interlocutor is interested in who said that he underestimates her, and he simply believes that there is always a way out. A little while later, they are already heading to the table, while the main character looking around wonders why there is no one there. Well, at that very moment, someone approaches him and asks why the infamous Duke, how she arrived in the ivory tower. After which, the woman sits down on the sofa. She also claims that they haven't seen Cerise for a whole year. The main character thinks how nimble this sorceress is, and is expected from a master of lightning magic. At this point, the girl turns to her mentor and says that a lot of water has flowed under the bridge since her incompetent student last visited. The woman replies that everything is fine because she should have paid attention to it. She also apologizes for not being able to save the girl, but she replies that she is not offended. After this, the woman also says that the girl needs a staff, after which she uses magic to open the locker, and states that she wants to give a gift in honor of her return. So let the girl choose whichever one she wants, and the lady will happily thank her. After which, the girl begins to choose a staff for herself, and the Duke watches Gestart. He understands that they met in a past life, and the woman was the best master of the lightning magic faction. Well, she sacrificed her soul and body to an ancient evil god, which is why she lost her humanity. Gestarta mastered this ancient magic so well that she caused a lot of trouble for J. Lilith. Valencian. He understands that he needs to be on his guard, while the woman at this time is wondering what brought his lordship there. The guy thinks that he needs to act naturally and not show it. After which, the young man even asks to give him magical equipment. But at the same moment, the woman refuses and claims that it belongs to the ivory tower, and the Duke is even more impudent than they say. Valencian asks if she is ready to take responsibility for her words, after which the woman just snorts and claims that she won't sell him the equipment even for 1,000,000 gold. Worldly goods have no meaning in their tower, not even money. The guy replies that there was no talk about money, and the woman asks what he's talking about. Her interlocutor replies that he was going to offer her silence about the deeds of the ivory tower in exchange for reeds. The woman then asks what silence he is talking about and what the Duke might know about the ivory tower. After this, the guy asks if she really thinks that he is just pretending to know, after which he tells the lady to tell him why they stole him, and let her not lie that she knows nothing about the tip of Olgrim, because he is sure that she did not imagine that she could be exposed. After all, she made more than one agreement and very carefully intertwined them. Valencian also tells her not to try to deny his words, because they are not groundless. The woman replies that she still cannot give him the equipment, and then her interlocutor replies that he will report everything to the Empress. The woman replies that he can do as he wishes, but even Her Majesty will not oppose the ivory tower. Then the main character asks why she does this, and in fact he has a guess. After all, from the very beginning, Hestrat was aimed at him, and the woman asks what he is talking about. And the guy replies that the ivory tower has already gotten rid of a person by order of the Imperial Palace. He also wonders if the lady thinks the same fate will not affect her. The young man also wonders why she didn't protect the student, as she should have, since then she wouldn't have ended up in the red light district. While his interlocutor screams that this is an unfounded accusation. At this time, the girl turns to her mentor and claims that she has received the Empress's approval. She also became a court mage. Whether she liked it or not, she was now obliged to fulfill two roles, that of a mage and that of a member of the imperial family. In other words, she will represent the interests of both and become a bridge between the ivory tower and the imperial palace. The woman then claims that this bridge will soon become dilapidated and collapse because one person cannot belong to two factions. Rice claims that there was a time when she did not belong to any of them at all. And at least that's what it seemed to her. So the train teacher will prove that this is just her delusion. The woman doesn't even know what to answer, and looks at the Duke, who only whistles. After which, the woman says how two-faced these relatives are. A little while later, the guy is already handing the suitcase to his maid. The girl asks what it is, after which the main character claims that it is a magical weapon, the greatest masterpiece in the taboo of magicians in one bottle, and there are two of them. The girl asks what masterpiece and taboo mean, and just like, this could be the case, to which the guy replies that this magical item turned out so well that magic is not needed to use it. Then the lady hands this weapon to the gentleman and tells him to keep it for himself. But how can she accept something like that? However, the protagonist turns to Rudy and claims that a rat has appeared in the capital, and the imperial palace is no longer a paradise. Therefore, he hopes that she will become stronger in order to protect herself if necessary, and at least for his sake. The guy realizes that he just doesn't want to lose anyone again, after which he gives the lady something else and claims that they are glasses. In everyday life, they are useless, but when you need to shoot, they become irreplaceable. When aiming a weapon, the glasses will automatically point it at the target, and since she hasn't had to use a weapon yet, it will come in handy. After which, the girl puts on these glasses, and his interlocutor claims that they suit her very well. The maid thanks the gentleman, and he hands her a pistol and invites her to try it out. After all, who knows? Maybe now it will turn out that she has incredible talent. After which, the guy tells her to load the revolver, and then lower the hammer and pull the trigger. With the help of magic, the air explodes and the bullet accelerates. The girl then stands up and asks if this is how it should be done, to which the guy replies that yes, and then you need to fix your hands in this position. Well, before he can finish, the girl shoots and hits the target. The protagonist watches in shock, and the maid tells Mr. Valencian that thanks to the magical instrument, she hit the target right away. And her interlocutor asks if this is really so, and also wonders if the weapon really fires by itself. The guy also asks the maid if she wants to try again, to which she replies yes. After which, the girl points the revolver at the target and shoots. Well, the main character realizes that the bullet has disappeared somewhere, after which he runs up to the target. The lady tells the gentleman that it seems she missed this time because the hole remains. But the guy looking at this picture understands that everything is not so, and the second bullet also hit right in the center. The maid claims that she thinks it's just luck, because she still has a lot to learn. She also asks if her skills will improve if she trains hard, and the man realizes that she is a real shooting genius. A few days later, the maid is already heading to the market doing her shopping. One of the salespeople greets her, and the woman greets him back before moving on. But a little while later, the girl notices that someone is following her, and when she turns around, she also sees someone. Then she starts to walk faster, but there are already a couple of people there who are also running after her. A little while later, the girl already reaches a dead end. At that moment, these guys turn to her and ask if she is Rudy. The woman is interested in who they are and why they are following her. Her interlocutor claims that they were the ones fired because of her master. Therefore, the girl must take responsibility for this and let them vent their anger. Rudy realizes they used to work in the red light district. When the girl turns around, she realizes that she has nowhere to hide, and the guy tells her not to be afraid. Fun with them, but the girl already takes out her revolver and points it at them. One of the robbers says that he was scared, but wondered what it was. The other one replied that in their day, the maid carried all sorts of things with her. Rudy asks them to leave because she doesn't want to take advantage of this, but if they don't leave her, then she will have to. But the guy asks what will happen next, and will she really tell her master? And does this reckless guy have the strength? It would be good if at least he didn't lose consciousness from drinking. After which, the girl bites her lip and asks how dare he insult him. The lady also claims that they asked for it themselves, and one of the villains tells her to stop talking nonsense and not to move. However, at that very moment, this guy flies away, and the other one, in shock, asks what happened. One of them says what a creature the lady is, and the girl claims that this is the kind of world Mr. Valencian was talking about. And it seems she was too naive, after which the girl ends up in the head of another guy. And when she points the gun at another one of them, who claims that she has decided to stay with Mr. Valencian until she falls into eternal sleep. No matter what anyone says, she will be his faithful servant. The lady also puts the revolver back under her skirt and states that she should get used to this. But at that very moment, one of the guys opens his eyes, and all three begin to gather in one pile. Rudy screams in shock that this is an abomination and that it is a huge monster that emerges from the fusion of inanimate bodies. The monster only screams at this point. A short time later, the Duke sits sipping tea, but at that very moment, someone runs up to him and screams, "Valencian!" He says how much he scared him, and the servant claims that the master should hurry because a filth was discovered in the city center. The guy asks if there are any witnesses in the city, to which the guy replies that there are. And the problem is that it is Rudy who is the servant of the Scarlet Halo Palace. At this time, a carriage arrives at the main palace, after which one of the knights gets out of it, followed by Rudy. But at that very moment, someone else runs towards them and screams at the maid. When the girl turns around, she happily says that it is Mr. Valencian. One of the knights says that she is the only witness of the evil, so for now he cannot approach her. But the man replies that Rudy's maid after the chip offers to tell all the circumstances. The man claims that there was definitely someone else with her during the incident, so they need to drop her off. But the guy asks if that's really true. The knight claims that the core of the filth found at the crime scene was pierced through with one blow. This was done by someone of very powerful skill that an ordinary maid clearly cannot possess. The Duke then smiles and says that it is true, and now it is clear where the conclusion came from, that there was someone else there. After which the guy says that Rudy is a shooting genius, and it seems the knight does not know who he is, or is perhaps too stupid to understand. After which the guy grabs the girl by the hand and brings her closer to him, claiming that he is the Duke of Valencian. He will also interrogate his maid and report everything to Her Majesty, after which he asks if he is really against it, to which the knight replies that no. Their Duke says that this is wonderful because then they leave, after which the guy moves on, and when they walk through the garden, the maid turns to the gentleman. He asks what happened, and the girl replies that she plunged innocent people into eternal sleep. She could have spared everyone except one, but out of fear of revenge, she finished him off too. After this, the guy puts his hands on the lady's shoulders and tells her not to worry too much. After all, thanks to this, they are now on the same track, because this is the most important thing for him in life, after which the maid turns to the master with emotion. The guy understands that he said this to cheer her up, but Rudy was probably very scared, so if she says that she wants to quit, he will have nothing to say. At this time, the girl turns to Mr. Valencian and says that it seems so. Now she understands how terrible and heavy the burden he bears is. Therefore, she will serve His Highness until her last breath. And even after, the guy then replies that yes and asks to take care of him. A little while later, Cererisa wonders if there are 100 dead bodies in the slums. Well, her interlocutor replies that there were more than 100, and they tried to get rid of the bodies by throwing them into the sewer, where cleaning slugs live that would dissolve everything. But there were so many bodies that the slugs couldn't handle them all, and they ended up rushing to the surface. The girl asks why they do this, and her interlocutor replies that these are sacrifices to the elders, and in other words, they collect dark power. The girl then asks who these fools are, and whether Her Majesty the Empress allowed this investigation to be carried out, after which the main character does not know what to answer. His sister claims that as a poppy, she would gladly go there to get samples of erosion from the elders, but she does not want to be beheaded. After this, the guy remembers his conversation with Her Majesty the Empress. The girl claimed that this time it was necessary to thoroughly cleanse the capital and the slums completely, but now is not the right time to demonstrate wide-spectrum magic. Hey, the guy claimed that he probably misheard. The woman claimed that she was waiting for the dark force to fully manifest itself in the slums, and then they could clean everything up at once. But if the Grand Duke decides to find out the reasons for the emergence of the dark force before it appears in full force, then it will provide support. Now the guy claims that's what she said, and Cererisi claims that it is very kind of her. At the same moment, they notice several people, and the main character is looking at one of them. He understands that this man is Mateos. He is a former erosionist and also the owner of a huge amount of dark energy. He was also called the Black Saint, so this time he must make this guy an ally of the J-Lilith. The young man at this time turns to these two and claims that he is looking for someone, Valencian claims that the sun will set soon, and it is dangerous for students to wander the streets in the dark. So let him come back soon. The young man also understands that he should return, because he still has many erosionists to capture. The young man thanks him for his concern, but claims that he cannot leave his friend. The main character asks if he is talking about a friend, to which the guy replies that yes, after which he hands him an announcement and claims that his friend named Dismas has gone missing, and that they may have seen him. Valencian wonders if this can't wait, since the search for the missing person should be left to the Black Knight, and he needs to hurry back to the dorm. Well, his interlocutor refuses, and the main character thinks, why is he doing this? Mateos thanks him for his support, but claims that he cannot return without his friend. Valencian understands that this guy has always been stubborn, after which he thinks about how to send this person back. Cerise turns to Valencian and asks why he needs this, because even if this guy falls into eternal sleep, there it will be by the will of fate. At that moment, Mateos asks in shock if this is really His Highness Valencian, to which the man replies that yes, and it is him. His interlocutor then asks if he is the same one about whom rumors have been circulating in the capital lately. After this, the guy thinks that he won't lie, after which he replies that yes, and he is that same Valencian, the one who set up his half-brothers and sisters in order to survive himself. While drunk, he harassed the maid, and his interlocutor asks if he is the one who cheated at the casino and started the fire. The protagonist replies that this is true, but wonders what went wrong and why there are so many rumors. Meanwhile, Mateos wonders if he was the one stealing Her Majesty's wine. He enjoyed hunting people in the slums and made substances to sell in the entertainment district, some hefty ones to feed the wyverns despite the fact that the water temperature wasn't right, after which the guy replies that, yes, he thinks what kind of rumors are these? However, the young man cries out that in general he is that very Valencian, and if the guy does not follow him, he will throw him to be eaten by the wyverns. At this time, Mateos was wondering where he wanted them to follow him, because he wanted to walk around the area again to look for Dismas. Cerise at this time wonders why Valencian wants to take this guy with him, but the main character whispers to his sister that this is necessary because in case of unforeseen circumstances, they will throw him in as bait. After this, the girl says that the guy is cooking a cauldron, and the main character realizes that he just lied to her. A little while later, they are already heading through the sewers. Mateos. He claims that he heard that there is such a place underground, but he didn't expect to ever get there. Cerise asks if it's not strange, no matter how many cleaning slimes there are. This place is too quiet and clean, and there is not a single sign of human life there. The protagonist replies that sometimes this place is used for smuggling, but poor people don't go down there. The girl asks why, because it is clean and spacious there, and also an ideal place to hide from the wind and rain. Cerise. He claims that maybe it's just a horror story, but he heard that sometimes slugs of a different kind appear there, and the main character asks if this is true. To which the guy replies that yes, and they are not green but yellow-green, and they say that slugs of this type attack living people. The interlocutors are shocked and ask if this is really true, but Valencian understands that he had never heard of such a thing in his past life, after which one of the guys even notices the boot. He immediately goes to him and says that this can't be Mateos. He claims that this is Dismas's boot, since it has the order's insignia on it. Cesares claims that they have definitely seen something like this before. The main character replies that yes, and it seems he heard something, after which they head towards where the boot was lying. Valencian senses the energy of the filth, and realizes that he didn't think it would hide there. Well, when the guy goes around the corner, he is surprised because he sees slime on the ceiling, in which there are people, and one of them is Mateos's friend. Valencian understands that this is the slime that attacked people, and all this time it was nasty. Mateos shockedly asks what sin these young slaves have committed. Valencian understands that if it were that black Saint Mateos, whom he remembers, he would simply burn everything without hesitation, and perhaps he is so soft because he is young. The main character says that there is no need to be surprised, because if you remember how many people have disappeared from the capital, it becomes clear that there must be at least 4 more such things. Cesares claims that Valencian is right, so this disgusting thing must be burned immediately, But at that very moment, Mateo stops the lady and cries out that Dismas is still alive. The girl tells him to step aside, as his body won't be able to fully absorb the lightning anyway. The young man cries out that he won't allow himself to be plunged into eternal sleep for Dismas. But at the same moment, the main character turns to his sister and tells her to wait. The woman asks what it is, and whether he also feels sorry for this filth. Well, the young man wonders what if she can't destroy it, and it only hides deeper or collapses even more. In general, her decision is not the best, and Mateos turns to His Highness with some surprise. He also claims that Dismas simply did not deserve such an end, because he always cared for the weak and researched the doctrine, and was also faithful. Well, the main character replies that this guy is not a victim, and it's not the slime's food, but its core. The guy also asks if he knows what that means. After all, Dismas himself became evil Sariras. He replies that this is true, and it is better for him to surrender, and also let her destroy it. But the guy immediately cries out that this can't be, because God would never have abandoned him. Valencian screams out how stupid this is, and does he really not understand that this is irreversible? After which, the guy tells him to leave, but Mateos, he says to leave him because he will somehow persuade him. Siririse at this time suggests simply leaving this fool to plunge into eternal sleep there. At this time, the monster sees 3 intruders and understands that there is a lot of mana there. He understands that this is a victim, and it needs to be absorbed, after which he creates a blade, and then he throws it at the 3 of them. The protagonist notices this, after which he bends down and pushes the others. But the blade still wounds his leg. Siririse shocked turns to Valencian. Mateos also turns to His Highness and helps him to stand up, asking if he is okay. The guy replies that it is quite possible, and Siririse takes out his staff and then confirms it, that this monster chose the wrong opponent, because this guy is her chance for promotion. So until he definitely falls into eternal sleep, the lady directs her power at the monster, and Mateo screams desperately at Dismas while he writhes in pain. Then the guy asks if Dismas doesn't see that. Because of him, people are falling into eternal sleep, and he wonders what happened to him. The main character realizes that this guy is not at all like the Mateos he knew. He is younger than in his previous life, and this guy does not have the gloominess that was characteristic of him then. The girl at this time deals with parts of the mucus, after which she turns to Valenciana and suggests leaving this to the Order of the Black Knights. After all, if they still use magic, the ceiling will probably collapse. The guy replies that he agrees and that we need to retreat. The main thing is that they found the filth, and the Black Knights will handle the rest. But at that very moment, something behind them makes a sound, and when the young man turns around, he sees a monster and screams for the others to run as fast as they can, because this is an abomination. Seeing this, Siririse curses, and Mateos tells His Highness that they need to run away quickly, after which they run, and the girl once again uses the spell on the monster and covers it with stones. The protagonist notices ahead long-awaited exit from dungeons, but at that moment, when hope is already flaring up in his heart, Mateos suddenly stops, his gaze directed somewhere ahead, as if he sees something inaccessible to the rest. Air around becomes tense, and the steps freeze. Valencian, cautiously looking at his companion, he asks what business. Mateos quietly replies that, if they now will come out outward, then all the people who are outside, they will be under threat. His words sound calmly, but you can feel it in them, solid determination and inner faith in one's own solution. Siririse can't stand it anymore, and asks what they are gathering to do next. She suggests not to delay, and how can leave the dungeon faster, because delay maybe cost them life. Her voice trembles with tension, and every word echoing in the dark corridors. Mateos, remaining in place, asks His Highness, "A little wait." Then he does deep inhale and gather magical energy that flares up around him. Soft radiance, light concentrates in his hands, forming streams of cleansing forces. He admits that his skills in purification were stronger than in healing. Therefore, everything he does now is his limit. A look appears on his face, tired, but in the eyes is on fire, determination to finish what you started. Even if this will require with all my strength. Mateo speaks Valenciana, so that left without him. The Duke was amazed, and did not immediately understand what he is getting at by asking what exactly. That conceived, there is a note in his voice. Anxiety because he feels that solution. Matteosa associated with the victim. Matteos explains that, being a novice, he cannot act otherwise. How a man who believes that everyone is equal before the light will not allow the monster to escape outward, even if at the price this will become his own life. For him, it's not just a debt, it's trial faith. Valencian exclaims that it's madness after all. Abomination is an enemy that cannot be defeated. Even an experienced magician, not to mention a simple one student. He's trying stop the young man, but he doesn't listen, continuing concentrate magic. Matteos answers that when light was with him, he saved hundreds of souls and cleansed thousands. Therefore, he has no right to retreat now. Let even this fight will be his last. He must to fulfill the will of light to the end. While in the heart, Matteosa lives faith, that he still follows his own fate and controls. By her fear does not find in him places he feels inner strength, as if an invisible hand leads him forward through darkness and doubt, supporting even in the most heavy moments. At the same time, Valencian realizes that Matteos and that one mysterious black holy, absolutely different people. One driven sincere faith and striving for the light, the other, cold darkness and merciless by will. This difference becomes for him obvious, and in his heart is emerging cautious confidence. By more, it is forbidden, say will bring Li Matteos real benefit to the imperial court, or will become only temporary ally. But Valencian firmly decides that he will not allow, he will die or fall into eternal sleep. Because in this, he feels like a young man, something more than just a soldier. He states that will do, with him not intending to leave his comrade alone. Ceres is shocked by his words. In her look appears anxiety mixed with incomprehension. She doesn't believe that he really is going to do this. Soon the woman can't stand it and screams out loud indignation. She asks, "I haven't lost myself, is he sane?" The Duke calmly answers that necessary report to the Empress about everyone and bring them there. Tentia, after all, situation becomes too much dangerous to act alone. Ceres does not calm down, and with bitterness asks if he himself really wants to plunge into eternal sleep, as if death is something for him. Noble goal, her voice trembles in it. Fear and hidden sounds are heard, care, but Valencian sharp suppresses her words. Forbidding sister even think about follow him. He speaks from the inside determination that does not allow objections. After all, she is the only one who can convey the message to the Empress. He reminds that, exactly, she is their last one, hope for salvation. If she will die, no one will be able warn Empire of the impending threat. These words make Ceres freeze, realizing the seriousness of it, what is happening. Sometime, Lady hesitates, but then squeezes teeth and decides not to argue. In her eyes appears stubbornness and pain. She states that, if Valencian still plunge into eternal sleep, then he will find way to get it back. She swears that will revive him, and then personally will force taste the eternal again sleep, not like enemy, but how edification to him who dared neglect in her words. Her determination seems almost crazy, but you can feel it in her true devotion. After all, how she said it more than once, this guy is her chance for promotion and recognition at court. Losing him means losing her own dreams. Therefore, Ceres isn't going to let fate take her to manage them of their own free will. The Duke not paying attention. Attention to disputes breaks. Part his own clothes. A piece of fabric serves to him with a bandage, which he tightly wraps fresh wound, not allowing the blood to flow to the ground. His movements confident and familiar, as if pain has long been his companion. Approaching Matteos, Valencian asks, realizes Lee that as far as recklessly fight abomination without magic artifacts. His voice does not sound reproachful, but rather examination, readiness, and fortitude of the young fighter. The hero compares such an act with a step forward eternal sleep, where there will be no return. Matteos only silently nods, accepting this risk. Then Valencian offers to him keep behind, so as not to lose life earlier, then will begin a real battle. Matteos is being prepared. Use his cleansing power, and his companion takes on the task of destroying everything that will stand on their paths. Their actions become a single rhythm of battle. Light and steel intertwine, turning into a deadly alliance. After short respite, Mateos addresses His Highness. His face illuminates barely noticeable smile. Fatigue can't hide, respect that arose in the depths of the soul after what we had experienced together. He thanks Valenciana and admits that he was mistaken in his judgment. He says that the rumors spreading in the capital blinded him, forcing him to believe false words about the scandalous heir. Now before him stood a worthy man, Honor. The protagonist, however, responds with a cold shoulder with prudence. He notices that the guy is too rushed to conclusions, because there is still a way to go, is far from finished. And if that will decide, run away at the first sign, danger. Everything that is said will not happen, have values, but their talk interrupted. From darkness underground passage, a monster appears, slowly approaching them. Valencian instantly evaluates threat and decides that it is time to act, ordering everyone prepare for battle. At that moment, Mateos calls the light force that flares up around him, soft radiance, and the main character raises his sword and strikes first blow. Their well-coordinated actions reflect dozens of attacks, not giving the monster the slightest chance. Valencian notices that the enemy is not similar, not on a living thing creature, nor on those who was defeated eternal sleep. It amazes him insolence this creature that dared look into the eyes to the air empires. However, despite the power, hit the main character can't finish dissect the monster's neck. Mateos understands that the monster's flesh is incredibly dense, and the bones are like stone, as if created to resist death. The guy offers try to clean it again, using more light, but Valencian stops him with a gesture. He warns that there is no point in wasting power, because the outcome is already predetermined. Concentrating, the hero does powerful jerk and strikes the decisive blow. The monster's head falls to the ground with a dull sound, and the body collapses following. In silence, he mentally curses creature, sending her back into the abyss. Mateos immediately begins cleansing defeated enemy. His hands are enveloped light, and the darkness that has permeated the remains begins disappear. He notices that although they manage to win, complete cleansing will take many time. The main character in this time becomes wary. He feels that the danger has not disappeared, and advises Mateos is in no hurry to leave. In the air is hovering, feeling threats, as if someone is watching them from darkness. Sight Valenciana rushes into the distance of the corridor, where barely are visible vague shadows. He feels approximation new creations, and is set the question, did new ones really appear before them again? Filth, thirsty for blood and light. However, when a guy is full determination and fighting spirit readiness, he sees them, he suddenly freezes as if in a daze. The next, a blink of his eye expand in horror, and he gasped, screams, unable to hide the shock of what he sees. Before he could come to his senses, the guy was overcome instinct warrior. He is stronger, squeezes the hilt of the sword, and barely enemies take a step forward. Activate Imperial style of fencing first level, the technique that was taught to the best fighters, ancient capitals. However, even in the midst of, the guy notices the battle's lateral vision as one of creatures breaks out from encirclement and rapidly rushes towards Mateos. The creature moved surprisingly fast. His massive paws thundered on the stone slabs, and the eerie roar was reflected from the walls. At that very moment, Mateos, not giving in panic, concentrates all his inner strength. His body envelops barely noticeable radiance, and invisible wave energy breaks throughout. The monster, before it could get any closer, seemed to runs into a wall and falls cringing from the unbearable pain. The Valencian immediately runs up to the boy, assessing the situation with a quick, experienced glance. He gestures for him to be on guard, as the muffled footsteps of approaching enemies can still be heard all around. A few moments pass before Mateos, breathing heavily, turns to face His Highness. The protagonist realizes that loses too much many red liquid. He feels like with a swing of the sword, his body becomes heavier, but the movements are less accurate. Perhaps his consciousness has already become clouded because the guy suddenly notices that one of the monsters is back again, rushes straight at him. His eyes are burning madness, and from a roar bursts from the throat in which can be heard mixture rage and pain. A second of delay could cost life. And it was at that very moment, when it seemed that the blow was inevitable behind my back. The whistle of a blade cutting is heard ere a moment, and the monster falls cut in half. Air is filled with the smell of magic and steel. Someone filled determination and strength intervened in the battle. Savior turns out Tentia Rudy appears next to her, hurrying towards Valencian with obvious excitement. His eyes full relief, but in movements readable anxiety. They assess the scale of destruction, noting that forces enemies until they run out, and the situation remains dangerous. The guy finds out that arrived with them, Siririse, Tentia, and Rudy. Their presence inspires hope, as if fate itself had sent them help in this desperate hour. The lady with blue hair reports that her Your Majesty in advance warned about hidden charms protecting dungeons. On the ceiling underground, water supply really imposed ancient magical seals, holding vaults from destruction. These spells remaining with time's old empires shine dull light, barely noticeable through dust and moisture. Girl, without losing time, raises his hands, concentrating flow strength. Her magic breaks through outward dazzling light, from which even monsters instinctively retreat. Wave energy, like a storm of light, rolls through the hall. Valencian realizes that no matter how many times he's seen Sararise's magic, it's always impressive. Tentia approaches His Highness and claims she heard he was injured, to which the boy replies that it is. The lady immediately pours a healing potion on his leg, and the boy thanks her. Rudy, meanwhile, turns to Mr. Valencian and suggests that perhaps the man next to him was only pretending to need help and was actually trying to harm him. She then points the trigger at the man and offers to check. But the protagonist immediately stands in front of Mateos and tells the girl not to worry, as everything is definitely not right, after which the lady says, fine. But at the same moment, another monster appears, and Tentia reports this. But the monster claims that the knight is strong, after which he screams that he will absorb her and take her power, and then he can become as powerful as she. But the girl deftly cuts down this monster and says that if he wants to become truly strong, he must first realize that there are no shortcuts to this. Rudy also shoots the monsters with a revolver and claims she cleared the way for them, and the protagonist claims she did a great job. At that moment, someone else approaches them and says these guys are tough. However, it's all futile as they are doomed to be consumed by darkness. The boy also turns to the warriors of the past, telling them to rise up and destroy them. At the same moment, civilians are being led there, and the main character seeing this asks if they really decided to use the citizens as hostages. At that moment, the slime begins to grab them, and the monster forms a large web with victims. Siriraz claims that everything is not so simple because this is a summoning ritual, and they are going to use them as victims. Mateo, shocked, asks how they can stop this. And if they know a way, he asks for a hint, claims that this creature does not belong to the caster, and his friend cannot recall the summoned creature, but those people behind most likely can. And simply putting his friend into eternal sleep isn't enough to stop them, so the protagonist cries out, asking what to do. The girl replies that the only way to quickly neutralize the magic circle is to put the victims into eternal sleep. But Valencian understands that the scale of the magic circle is too vast, and something more dangerous than the creatures they've encountered so far will likely emerge from it. And then J-Lilith will likely have to intervene. For the greater good, the lesser must be sacrificed. Well, at that very moment, one of the boys in the web screams out asking for salvation, and the main character clenches his teeth and then claims that they will tear these damned invaders apart and save the people. Everyone else agrees, and Sarah Ricey comments on how her brother loves to take the hard way. The guy also claims that Tentia and he will attack them from the front, and the woman replies, yes. Rudy also agrees, and Sarah Rice asks if he really decided to assign her the most boring job, after which the guy says that Mateos should follow him because he will tell him when it is necessary to use purification. His interlocutor immediately agrees, and the protagonist insists that he's clarifying for the last time that now with everything turned out this way, his friend will definitely not survive, and he wonders if he'll hate them. The guy replies that traitors should be burned at the stake, and no one should pity the one who chose the path of fall. Valencian understands that these are the beginnings of the Black Saint and thanks him for the direct answer. Meanwhile, Siririse begins using his magic, and the protagonist attacks with his sword, after which they deftly cut down all the monsters. But at that moment, one of them sprouts paws from his back. Tentia cries out in alarm to His Highness, who replies that he knows. The boy then uses the Imperial Level 2 swordsmanship style non-existence, but the monster quickly regenerates and attempts to attack the protagonist. Rudy immediately shoots it with a revolver, then declares that Mr. Valencian must not be harmed. Valencian also fights them, and when another monster flies away, their leader exclaims in frustration that he won't give up so easily. Valencian cries out to Mateos and offers him the opportunity to use his powers. Does so after this, but at that very moment, the monster begins to scream. And when the protagonist covers his ears, he asks what it is. But at that very moment, he sees a rift in space. The leader of the monsters screams that everyone needs to be put into eternal sleep. Valencian, he understands that there is such a tremendous force there that he can't breathe, but he can't fall into eternal sleep there. He can't give up because if he falls, Sililith will be in danger. The man also sees that the forces are directed at Mateos. He immediately jumps up and shields him with his body. Mateos, shocked, addresses His Highness, who insists that he didn't say everything he wanted. He should listen to the voice of the Lord, for he has great faith. The Lord does not turn away those who call upon him. Mateos claims that he almost forgot that the Lord is always with him, after which the guy turns to the Lord and claims that his subject is calling out to him, so he asks for the power to incinerate the sinners. A few seconds later, the monsters are already on the floor, and Tentia shocked looks at the ceiling, saying that an ancient spell had been cast on it. Siririse claims that this means that the divine power was much stronger than him, but she also wonders how this is possible. Mateos turns to the Lord once again and asks him to allow him to become his fire and weapon, after which he incinerates the remaining monsters. When the protagonist looks at his shoulders, he realizes that his wounds are healing, and the others notice it too. Valencian understands that this is amazing, and it is all the power of Ramateos. Tumor, as well as the birth of the Black Saint. The leader of the monsters writhes in pain at this time, after which he cries out to his friend that he too knows about the injustice of this world, and the power of light is not enough to change it. But his interlocutor replies that it's not so. The problem isn't the light, but themselves. If he himself can't even take care of ordinary citizens, how can he talk about the light's weakness? After which, Mateos. He tells those who rose from the darkness to return back to the darkness and pierces the monster with his powers, after which the people in the web begin to fall, and the protagonist screams for Tentia to catch the people, to which the woman agrees and immediately runs up to the lady who is falling and grabs her. Rudy also helps when one of the monster's minions burns. The protagonist notices his blue eyes and wonders if it's royal blood. Afterward, the boy realizes he can't disappear and runs to the man, but he doesn't make it in time and only grabs a piece of dust. Meanwhile, Mateos approaches his former friend and points his hand at him, intending to use his power. But his interlocutor turns to Mateos and asks to hear his final words. Mateos offers to speak, after which the monster begins. But he has no intention of speaking his final words. He wants to attack. Valencian immediately runs up to the two and screams, "What the hell is that monster trying to say?" He immediately stands in front of Mateos and protects him, but is shot in the stomach. But the guy holds on and says that's enough. He saves the average man, stabs the monster, and screams for it to go to hell already. After that, he falls along with the monsters. Mateos addresses His Highness in shock, and the boy, closing his eyes, thinks how fortunate it is that everything ended well. A little while later, someone in the market asks if anyone else has heard the rumors. They say the Duke of Valencian blew up the sewers. His interlocutor replies that he also heard about this, and he asks if they know that he is there, to which the other replies that no. and he was probably trying to implement some dirty and vile idea. Their interlocutor replies that there are rumors that substances and people were sold in the sewers. Furthermore, a huge group of people infected with the filth was discovered there. The other men ask if he's really talking about the filth. The boy replies that yes, and perhaps Duke Valencian was involved in the spread of the filth. If the new saint hadn't destroyed them, the infected would have crawled to the surface. The protagonist and his sister pass by at this time. The girl tells her brother that this is just another colorful rumor about the Duke being connected to the infection. The boy then smirks and says, "Yeah, right. He almost fell into eternal sleep from the hole in his stomach he got trying to save ordinary people from the coming of the filth." The girl asks what he means. He almost fell into eternal sleep because the new saint helped him with his prayer as soon as he had the chance. The protagonist replies that it was a tavern, but he'd been in bed for weeks recovering from a battle with the infected. Ciraress says that in any case, this new rumor suits him very well, and her interlocutor asks if it's true, after which he claims to like him too. Then the two enter an alleyway on Knowledge Street. Looking around, the guy understands that everything there doesn't resemble the autonomous Ivory Tower district at all, and it doesn't resemble the Street of Knowledge itself at all. The girl replies that this isn't surprising, since it's a place where academy graduates who have severed ties with it come. There are few jobs for mages in the Empire, so many of them are going underground. The young man asks what they do there, and his interlocutor replies that they deal in illegal potions, artifacts, and scrolls. Basically, they produce and sell everything illegal related to magic. These goods are always in demand, so the place easily grew to quite a large size. Ciraress. He claims that he doesn't know anything about this place, so she's interested in who he's looking for there. But at that very moment, the guy notices a shop and says that it's the place he's looking for. When the two go inside, they see a young man with green hair. The guy greets them and claims that the magician Bastatine's potion shop is happy to welcome them. The guy asks if they're looking for a healing potion, a love potion, or perhaps something for luck. Since he has everything, the protagonist turns to Bastatine. He claims his shop is closing for the day. His companion, shocked, asks if it's Valencian, then grabs one of the test tubes. Ciraress immediately casts her magic on him and asks how dare he do such a thing. It hits the guy right on the hand, and the test tube falls from his hands and breaks, causing the spilled liquid to start boiling. One of the customers asks if it's poison and suggests they run. The protagonist says that if the guy continues, he'll only make things worse, so he suggests they sit down and talk calmly over a cup of tea, to which the guy finally agrees. A short while later, the young man is already pouring tea. He wonders what he owes to the visit of such distinguished guests to his humble shop. The protagonist raises a mug of tea to his lips, and Bastatine watches intently. But at that very moment, Valencian spills the mug of tea on the sofa next to his companion. The young man ducks in shock, and Ciraress menacingly remarks that it's a corrosive poison, and asks if he thinks brewing tea with it was too risky. Meanwhile, the protagonist draws a dagger and plunges it into his companion's hand. Bastatine cries out in pain, and Valencian. He claims that by order of the Empress, all members of the imperial family must be arrested, so let him surrender amicably. Bastatine claims that he is an ordinary merchant who did not receive a penny from his parents. So what imperial blood are we talking about? The protagonist claims he inherited his power through his blood, so he must belong to the imperial family. He talks about these cursed bonds and wonders how long they will hold him. He also begins to use his power. Ciraress, noticing this, asks what he's up to, and aims a spell at the boy, but he deflects it with his hand. The protagonist, shocked, asks if he really deflected the blow with his scales, and the girl says that it looks like these scales are not quite ordinary Valencian. He understands that the imperial red liquid was mixed with red liquids from different races. This guy is clearly related to the lizardmen, and that's why he's so good at manipulating poisons. The protagonist wonders if he's enjoying the inherited power, but doesn't want to fulfill the duty that comes with it. His interlocutor asserts that he never considered it a gift and always wanted to live a normal life. But the Duke replies that if the boy had been ordinary, he would have been gone after Ciraress struck him. Bastatin cries out that he's not going to give up, but the protagonist replies that it's only for now. He also understands, judging by his stance, this guy is a close combat fighter, so he can use pain fusion. But at the same moment, Valencian coughs up a red liquid and wonders if this is poisonous gas. The Duke realizes he's mistaken, as this guy isn't a melee fighter, and he also understands he needs to suppress the poison with Monastery Rise. She says that she has difficulty breathing, after which she falls down, and the main character screams to his sister. He immediately runs at Bastatin and screams at him for daring to harm his sister. The green-haired boy blocks the blow and then pushes the protagonist away. The boy realizes his technique has only scratched his scales, and the poison continues to penetrate his body, despite being restrained by Mana. Bastatin addresses his lordship and says that if he continues to hesitate, I will prevail, and victory will be his. But at that very moment, the two see lightning in front of them, and Valencian understands that this is Cyrirese's spell, after which he joyfully turns to her and Bastatin. He asks how this happened. The woman claims she initially slowed down because she hadn't encountered poisons in a long time, but protection from them is the foundation of magic. While the green-haired guy is distracted, the protagonist immediately tackles him to the floor. He holds a dagger to his throat and claims that this guy is capable of releasing poison through his mouth, and that perhaps he should be beheaded. He also asks his sister what she thinks, and Bastatin tries to shake his hand, but the protagonist immediately stabs him in the shoulder. He also claims that a drop of red liquid is an excellent tool for initiating dialogue. Cyrirese. He claims he was able to deflect one lightning strike, but can he handle the constant lightning strikes? The green-haired youth claims they're just demons, and the protagonist asks him to tell him everything he knows. Valencian. He says he knows there are bastards hiding in the academy with the imperial red liquid. The guy shocked asks how he found out about it, and his interlocutor replies that they even created a secret society, and the guy seems to be helping them using his status as a graduate. Meanwhile, someone from the academy approaches Jin and suggests they go with him. Meanwhile, the protagonist asks the green-haired boy, who is the leader of this community. One of the students approaches Jin and asks how the magic test went. Another guy replies that, of course it was good, because it was Jin. Their interlocutor claims he prepared extensively because he wasn't confident in his abilities, but ultimately managed to solve all the problems. He also claims he'll go because he still has assignments left, to which they agree, commenting on how diligent he is. A short time later, the young man runs into his dorm room and begins searching it. He then looks in the mirror and realizes his eye color has changed. The guy understands that he needs to find this thing faster, and after rummaging around a little more, he finds a bottle with a potion, and when he drinks it, then his eyes change back to blue. Jin turns around, wondering if anyone's there. At that very moment, he hears someone approaching and throws a dagger in that direction. It turns out that this is the main character, and he dodges, and Jin, looking at his face, asks if this amount is really the Empress's rabble-rousing brother named Valencian. The protagonist replies that the guy is quick to think about his interlocutor, who asks how long the Duke spent in this room, Valencian. He says that it took him so long that he began to doubt whether he had opened the wrong door, after which Jin attacks him, and he cries out, "What a rat!" The protagonist thanks him for the compliment and then repels the guy's attack. The young man realizes that all is lost because the man saw the color of his eyes and realized he was a member of the imperial family. Valencian waves his sword in front of the young man, and he understands that he needs to dodge, but at the same moment, the main character kicks him with his foot, and when Jin falls, he says how mean it is. His interlocutor replies that in a fight, the one who plays the dirtiest always wins. At that very moment, the young man moves toward the Duke and casts an explosion spell. Valencian is so excited about this, flies away. But when he opens his eyes, he sees that the young man is running away, after which the guy starts running after him and screams for him to wait, because where is he going? At that very moment, he jumps and grabs the guy, after which the two fly out the window and then fall to the floor. Valencian pins the guy to the ground and says that he's got the bastard. If he surrenders voluntarily, he won't have to bleed so much red liquid. The young man then cries out that a student from the Imperial Magic Academy has attacked them and tells everyone to go there. At this point, one of the students asks if he's really coming from this Imperial Magic Academy and if he even knows where he's headed. Then they finally see the main character and scream for him to be celebrated because they're about to throw him into the lake. Jin breaks free and starts running, and the protagonist realizes that the streets of knowledge have another name. They're called Battle Street. The reason for this name is simple. It's home to a lot of hot-blooded young men who are always up for a fight. That's why there are mass brawls there every day. Every student at the academy is always ready for a fight, and when students attack him, the guy screams, "What a vile idiot Jin is!" At that moment, someone else turns to the boy and says, "He can't cope without her." Valencian cries out that sister came just in time and asks for help. One of the students asks, "Who else is this?" The girl begins casting a spell, then directs it at a group of people. The protagonist, standing among them, asks Ceres if she's forgotten anyone, after which the boy is also struck and wonders why. A little while later, the three are already sitting in the dining room, and the main character, sighing, says that he thought all his hair was being pulled out. Ceres says it was interesting to watch how the students tried to tear apart the offspring of the imperial family. The guy replies that it doesn't matter, and what's more important is whether the bone rings are skull-shaped. Bastidon asks what kind of rings these are, and the main character replies that those who took Jin had such rings. This is the sign of the Ancient One's followers, and Jin himself is the imperial heir, so he hasn't yet fully submitted Ceres' turns to Valencian, and says that if the majority of the imperial family is truly doomed to fall under the Ancient One's influence, he will be able to do so. And if this is confirmed by their actions, will Her Majesty leave them alive? The boy replies that she's not one to simply dispose of loyal subjects, but he understands his sister's concerns. The girl then asks why they don't find the bastards first. Before they can awaken the Ancient's power, her interlocutor asks what will happen if someone resists too much, to which the woman replies that losses during battle are inevitable. Valencian. He replies that it's fine, and they will act according to the situation. And those who are too deeply immersed in this madness will simply be destroyed, as they will not be captured alive. Those who remain at a distance for now can be left alone. The young man understands that they will deal with the innocent later. Ceres. She says her brother surprises her, as she thought he'd simply suggest putting everyone into eternal sleep. The protagonist asks, what if they prove useful to Her Majesty, to which the girl replies that that's also possible. Bastidon can't help but cry out, "What does this mean? Could it really be that they've been deciding people's fates so easily behind their backs all this time, but they just wanted to live ordinary lives?" The Duke claims that people with imperial genes can master swordsmanship and magic in a matter of days. So how can such people live ordinary lives? Let the boy look around. Everyone pores over textbooks, earning themselves gray hair, and that's what ordinary life is. Magic and fencing are boring and difficult, and he interacts with poisons whenever he wants. So does he really think this is normal life? Well, the young man replies that putting them into eternal sleep is too much anyway. Valencian replies that he did say that they won't plunge everyone into eternal sleep. They will only do this to those who are too deeply mired in this. But then Valencian, he tells this guy to just wait, because he himself will understand that it is necessary. A little while later, Jin asks if everyone is there, and if they've lost anyone. His interlocutor replies that yes, everyone is there. One of them claims the professor promised to give him a letter of recommendation. Another guy claims that it is only because he is the bastard of the Imperial Red Liquid that he has to live like this, and it is too unfair. But Jin insists that life is more precious, so they have to endure. Well, one of them asks the guy how much longer they have to endure. Frankly, he doesn't understand why they have to hide, concealing their true selves and living in fear. The young man notices a skull-shaped ring and an unknown magical book, wondering when Pan became so deeply immersed in the study of the ancients. Jin turns to the boy and tells him he'd better take off the ring and get rid of the book. Pan asks why, and the young man replies that the imperial family persecutes them precisely because of such things, and the more they become fascinated with the ancient, the more it consumes them. After all, they themselves provide the imperial family with a pretext for their destruction. His interlocutor replies that this is not a reason to pursue them, but a force that will allow them to survive, because with such power, they can live a special life. So why should they stop? Jin, looking at the boy, wonders when he managed to fall so far. But in any case, the young man insists they need to go, or they'll miss the ship. At that moment, one of them replies that yes, it's time to go, but there are too many people there, after which a monster attacks them. He immediately approaches one of the students and puts Togo into eternal sleep, while Jin watches in shock. At that moment, someone apologizes and claims he agreed that only 5 people would board the ship. He then turns to the others and tells them to eliminate these people. One of the students screams at them for being traitors, and Jin tries to convince the monster not to, but he proves stronger. The boy falls to his knees and realizes this was all planned in advance. Pan approaches Jin and says they'll escape together and he's on their side now. But at that moment, someone uses their power and pushes the boy away. Sarah magic, and the protagonist, approaching the group, says he knew it. Valencian orders these walking problems to raise their hands and fall to the ground. At that moment, the group members shout that it's Valencian. Pan asks why they're standing there, then claims they're outnumbered and suggests putting them into eternal sleep. But one of them insists it's that same Valencian thug. The protagonist attacks them at this point, telling them what worthless idiots these guys are. Did they really think the prepared escape route would guarantee their escape? The guy says how worthless and weak they are. He'll tie their heads with a single rope and drag them to the palace. He also tells them to witness the magnificence of his swordsmanship, and the people in the group scream that he's gone crazy. Bastatine. He claims he has nothing to say, and that they truly thought they could live like ordinary people, but such words are not appropriate for the bastards of the imperial red liquid. Sarah replies that this is definitely true, and it's even funny, others from birth. But if they could enjoy a normal life, it would be nice, Bastatin. He replies that this is impossible, at least now. And the woman sighs and says that he is right. Right now, he can see the reason. The green-haired boy wonders if this is really their karma, and the boy asks how he should have lived. The girl quotes the words about how, with the emperor's legacy comes responsibility. To prove one's innocence, one must take on the corresponding responsibility. Ours repeats the word responsibility. At this point, Pan rises from the ground and in a rage unleashes a special power. Valencian turns to his sister and asserts that they are all about to fall into eternal sleep. The girl screams in shock that they've been spotted. Meanwhile, Jin, sitting on the ground, shakes and calls out to Pan. But the protagonist immediately lifts the boy by his cloak and asks what he's doing and if he'd better wake up. But at that very moment, Jin grabs the Duke by the robes and cries out that if he hadn't attacked Pan, he wouldn't have gone so berserk. Valencian, with a sarcastic grin, asks if the young man really means to say he drove the man mad. His interlocutor screams something about what would have happened if he hadn't provoked him. But at that very moment, the protagonist lifts the guy by the collar. The young man cries out in shock, wondering what he's doing. The Duke wonders why they should leave alive someone who could testify against him, so he simply destroys the evidence. Valencian then throws the boy to the floor, where he begins crawling away on his knees. The protagonist, with a smile on his face, says that the young man is so pathetic. At this time, Sarah turns to Valencian and asks what he is going to do, but the guy replies that he doesn't even know, and asks his sister if she has any ideas. The girl asks if he really thinks she's encountered something like this before, even though she's read about this monster. If this is a form of mutation, then its core must be deep inside. They need to cut it somehow so that the core is revealed, but the guy claims that his fire is not enough and asks what if they burn it with lightning. But the lady replies that she doesn't even know, because casting lightning on such a clear day would take at least 30 minutes. The young man replies that it's too much, and in half an hour, the entire area will be wiped off the face of the earth. And if they make a big fuss over a few warehouses to the cellar, Her Majesty will wipe them out. The girl then asks, what if we destroy it from the inside, for example, with poison? But when she says this, the two immediately turn to Bastatin. The young man asks what they want, after which he even claims he can't do it, since he's just the owner of a regular pharmacy. The protagonist wonders if he still hasn't figured out the situation, and Skriri stops him and asks Bastatine if she didn't tell him. That now is his chance to find the life he wants. The young man repeats the words about responsibility coming with the Emperor's red liquid, after which he clenches his fists and says he understands. The boy immediately covers his hands in scales and approaches the monster. Then he starts casting a spell and jumps right into the monster's mouth. Jin watches in shock, and the protagonist screams at the guy, but Siririse tells him to wait, after which the monster's head begins to move strangely. And then the guy breaks free of her. Valencian cries out that the cannonball has appeared, after which he turns to Jin and says, "It's his turn now, so let the guy finish him off," and he's obligated to do so, to which the young man agrees. He takes his sword and claims that he was after all among those who started it all. The boy leaps at the monster and screams for it to look at him, after which he bids his friend farewell and points the blade of his sword at the core. A short time later, one of the Academy's employees claims that despite the recent unpleasant incident, the student has become an example to others, for which he is being awarded a prize. Some of the students whisper that the Grand Duke of Valencia is implicated in this matter, and his interlocutor asks if he's serious. The other guy replies yes, and asks if he's heard rumors that bastards from the imperial family are hiding on the street of knowledge. One of the students asks irritably, "Who doesn't know about this? These damned idiots are naturally gifted at everything, but they pretend to put in the effort. It seems they needed a pretext to get rid of the bastards, so they unleashed the filth. But they went a bit overboard, and this monster appeared, though another guy insists it's nonsense. But even if that's true, since it's connected to filth, Her Majesty certainly wouldn't ignore it." At that moment, the boys see Jin approach the professor, who then presents him with an award, and everyone applauds. As the young man leaves the stage, someone addresses him and congratulates him, saying that, as expected, he is the pride of the court aristocrats. Jin thanks them, and his companions ask, how about a drink to celebrate the occasion, as a new place has opened nearby? The young man then apologizes, but insists he needs to go and is too tired today. A little while later, the guy looks at his watch and realizes that he is late, but this person has probably already arrived, and maybe he is in the room. At that very moment, someone behind him replies that no, he is there. The young man immediately turns to His Highness and asks how he knew he would be there. The man asks if there's anything he doesn't know, then hands the young man a bag of money. The genie is surprised and says it's a bit heavy and contains more than last time. The guy replies that it's because the money isn't just for him. There's not much left, so let the guy take care of everyone and make sure no one slips into black magic out of need. After graduation, let him continue to pretend to be a friend and help them, because from a black magician to a bearer of evil, there is only one step, to which the guy replies that yes, and he understands. Valencian. He says that it was not for nothing that he hired him into the secret chancery at the palace department. So let him keep an eye on the bastards, to which the young man agrees. He is silent for a moment, and then bows. He also says he's very grateful for the opportunity Valencian gave him. The man asks what he's talking about, and whether he's talking about preserving his core, to which the young man replies, yes, because His Highness helped him. The Duke replies that for nothing, and among the carriers of filth, there are plenty of those. Someone who loses their core throws a tantrum, which is why he saved it for them. The young man asks what he's talking about. A Valencian. He claims that there is no need to thank him so much, because he is just telling it like it is, after which he says goodbye to the guy who curses menacingly. A short time later, the Empress is seated at the table, after which the Duke approaches Her Majesty and asks if she invited them. The woman asks if they have arrived, then tells Siririse it's time to collect the money they agreed upon when she joined her. The girl, smiling, says she remembered that she couldn't collect from the casino. The Empress claims she'll soon send knights, so let the girl go and collect the money and show no leniency to these drug dealers. The girl then bows before Her Majesty and thanks her for her favor. The Duke claims the Empress looks especially bright today and wonders if something joyful has happened. The woman, smiling, replies that he is quite perceptive, and she is truly happy because thanks to him, they got rid of the bastards, and it turns out that internal affairs are almost finished. All that remains is to finish cleaning the Red Moon Palace and a few more people, and that's it. After that, she will stabilize the country's governance and receive the blessing of the new saint to cement her legitimacy. And then she will demand an oath of allegiance from all the great lords, and there will be no one left who would dare to disobey her. Then she'll become a true empress, and the Duke wonders if she plans to conquer the world afterward. The woman asks if he's talking about the entire world, and then replies, no. And if she can do it at any time, why would she want to? The Empress claims that she always looks at problems first, and simply wants her subjects to be able to live without fear of filth and corruption. The protagonist smiles and realizes that Lilith is a born monarch. Everything is as expected, so it's very good that he stopped that war. The young man also turns to Her Majesty and asks if he can ask her for something, to which the woman replies that she is listening. The guy claims that this concerns those who remained in the Red Moon Palace, and he asks if Her Majesty can test him once, to which the woman replies that if he wants that, then fine, because he already goes through tests all the time. A short time later, Sararizi is already at the casino and tells the managers that they haven't seen each other in a while. The girl also says that they've met. One of them tells the rich man that they haven't seen each other in a while, and the girl replies that they have. Then she places a piece of paper on the table and states that she will now outline her legal demands. The lady asserts that these are the amounts each casino owes her, and asks if they're going to pretend they don't know anything. Well, one of them claims that even a great lord would be horrified by such a sum. To raise that amount in cash, they would have to go bankrupt. But the girl asks, what does that matter to her? One of them claims that, according to the rules, in order to exchange chips, you need to bring them, and he asks if she has chips to exchange for cash, to which the girl replies that of course she doesn't have them, and all her things are in the room, because they themselves removed them. The man claims that rules are rules, and if there are no chips, then they cannot give out any coins. But at the same moment, one of the ladies raises her hand and replies that everything is wrong. The woman claims their casino called Nadezhda will keep its promise. One of them exclaims in shock, wondering what she just said, while the other asks what kind of nonsense she's talking about. Another of the owners tells Nadezhda that they agreed to stick together. Siriras understands that it seems Valencian promised something to the Red Mask, so this is not surprising. At this time, the woman tells the lady to give her a week, and she will give her the entire amount in cash, to which the girl agrees, and states that she gives them all 10 days. By noon on the 10th day, everyone must prepare a bag of gold coins, and she thinks it's not worth even mentioning what will happen to those who disobey. The casino owners are only offended by this, and one of them stands up and declares that she'll go too. When the girl leaves, one of the men insists they can't leave things as they are, and the other owner asks if he has a plan. The man replies that the Empress is planning to destroy them all, so they need to escape, and they have the strength to cross the border. A few days later, someone addresses the brothers and sisters and greets them. This is the underground secret room of the Red Light District. The man claims his name is Ranchea and is about to announce his escape plan through the Red Venetian Palace. At that moment, someone says that this idiot is trying to sell them something again. When one of the ladies turns to this man, she asks if this is Valencian, but when the guy shows her to be quiet, the girl immediately closes her mouth. The protagonist urges her to listen carefully, because if Helena follows Ranchea, she will surely fall into eternal sleep, and he too plans to escape. He understands that as long as the red fluid of the imperial bloodline flows in their veins, they will not survive if they remain within the Empress's sight. And he called not only her, but also several others who were truly capable of doing something. So if she wants to live, let her come into the next room and ask him what he's talking about. A little while later, she enters the room, and the boy realizes that Helena is here. Everyone's here after all. These half-siblings were the ones who helped him in his past life, so he can't let them fall into eternal sleep again. The woman asked Valencian what kind of nonsense he was spouting a minute ago. Someone else claims to have the same question, and she wonders what he's up to and why they're there. This guy is a scion of an imperial family named Hard-Written, Denia. He adds that, frankly speaking, he doesn't inspire confidence, after which the guy smiles and claims that he is Valencian and also an advisor to the Ministry of Affairs of the Imperial Palace, so he sincerely welcomes those who have sworn allegiance to Her Majesty the Empress. At that moment, these people ask when they swore their oath, and the Duke replies that he is grateful to them for choosing him in Rancha's place. Their mothers come from great noble families, and even Her Majesty cannot execute them without cause. However, Her Majesty is tired of this boring stalemate, and these people are wondering if, in other words, she has decided to plunge them all into eternal sleep. But the protagonist claims that he convinced Her Majesty that losing such talented people as them would be a tragedy, and received from her the authority to convince them to join. Soon they will be able to swear allegiance, but until then their task is to convince their families to swear allegiance to Her Majesty, and having convinced their families, they will be able to go home. If they wish to remain in the capital, they can do so as well. They will no longer be locked in the Red Viennese Palace. And what's more, they'll have a chance for career advancement, after which they ask if this is really true. At that very moment, one after another, they claim they'll do it, and the protagonist cries out to keep it up. He puts papers on the table and asks if anyone else wants to sign this document, because if so, then let them go out and do it, and then people immediately run there. Valencian, he claims that since they've already decided to sign the agreement, it wouldn't hurt to show their faces. He also asks if they could take off their hoods, which is what triggered the attacks. And the guy realizes that's great, since everyone he wanted to see was there. But at that very moment, he sees another person and wonders if it could be Justin. He still clearly remembers that very moment before he fell into eternal sleep. After all, it was the prince who staged the rebellion, so he will definitely become a nuisance again. The guy is wondering what to do and whether he needs to eliminate this guy right now. Justin asks if something is wrong, after which the guys answer no, and hands him a paper to sign, realizing he can't ruin the game right now. So we need to watch a little longer, because right now it's much more important to deal with Ranchia a little while later. The young man is already by the sea observing the situation there. He understands that this is a great escape of the Imperial Red Liquid, and that this has happened many times in his past life. Everyone's beginning is different, but the ending is the same. It all begins with a great escape, and Celilith will raise an army in the name of the throne, after which civil war will break out. In the chaos, the number of demons and corrupted creatures will multiply, and the Queen and the Republic will rise up against the Empire. The boy understands that chaos will erupt again, just like in his past life, so today he must nip the seed in the bud. The young man approaches Tentia, and when she responds, he asks if she will stop him if he decides to plunge all his half-siblings into eternal sleep today. The girl remains silent for a moment, after which she asks His Highness not to make her think about such things as it's too tiring. The woman also says that in any case, with her modest abilities, she can. But then she interrupts and asks if he himself didn't say that. With the red liquid comes both rights and responsibilities. With so many heirs to the Emperor, the great purification was only a matter of time, and it is a kind of law of nature that cannot be excused. The boy then thanks the girl, but at that moment he notices a cart. He immediately runs out onto the road, and pointing his sword at the cart, tells the driver to stop, and the man immediately stops the horses. After which he gets down from his seat and screams that the guy has really gone crazy and scolds him. But at that very moment, Tentia, he tells them to stop because they received a report about the import of prohibited goods. So an inspection needs to be carried out, and they are asking for cooperation. The man asks what kind of inspection they're talking about, and the other workers ask what's going on. Tentia turns to His Highness and claims that if they check every cart, they'll miss the rest of the fugitives, to which the man replies that she's right. After which the main character uses a blazing fire that envelops everything around and begins to burn the carts, and also says that if they are set on fire, the fugitive will definitely come out on his own. At that moment, one of the coachmen cries out, "What right he has to burn their carts?" The fellow replies that these carts don't have guild emblems, and asks if this is an illegal business, at which point his interlocutor doesn't even know what to say. At this point, the people in the wagons run out, and one of them coughs heavily because the fire is burning up oxygen. At the same moment, someone else approaches the protagonist and asks if he really cares so much about his little sister. But at the same time, he mercilessly plunges others who share his kinship into eternal sleep. This woman is a scion of the imperial line named Arietta. The boy cries out that she gave him a second life. At that very moment, the woman attacks him, and the protagonist realizes that there is no point in even stopping because her movements are too predictable. But at that very moment, the guy receives damage to the face. He asks if this is a magical spell called the Wind Blade, and if the girl is still so powerful. The lady replies that her father was the late emperor, and that her mother's veins were filled with the red liquid of Shilfa, after which she screams out that the guy isn't the only one with the imperial red liquid flowing through him. The woman begins swinging her sword, creating streams of wind, which the protagonist deflects. At this time, the lady turns to her accomplices and screams for everyone to start acting now. And the guy understands that this was not for an attack, but for a breakthrough, after which the rest of the people start running, and one of them cries out that this damned city is finished. The Duke immediately runs after the lady, but just as he's about to grab her, someone pushes her forward. It turns out to be Rancha Arietta turns around, and while striking screams at the boy to continue to protect his sister and never regret his choice, and she no longer wants to live under the oppression of this tyrant. After this, the young man thinks everything is bad, but at the same moment, Tentia parries these blows and claims she will delay them, then suggests His Highness pursue the instigator. Ranchea, meanwhile, asks if they're talking about the instigators and asserts that he believes it's him. The guy immediately takes out a syringe and injects Arietta with it, saying that if they can stop him, they should go for it. The girl screams and begins to mutate while the protagonist cries out, "Did he really forcefully infect her? Has Ranchea crossed the line?" The blonde then runs away and asks if Valencian has gotten used to the infected, yet he simply has to survive again. The protagonist then merely smirks before something impales the monster. Ranchea turns around in surprise, and the protagonist shows Rudy, who's standing on a nearby tower, that she's a good girl. The monster, meanwhile, is about to attack Valencian again, but Rudy shoots at it again, wondering how this creature dares to attack its master. After the girl fires a few more shots, she notices the cannonball and deftly pierces it with one shot. Ranchea, meanwhile, jumps onto the ship, and when the Duke notices this, he realizes he's too far away and cries out to Rudy. The girl immediately turns to the guy and shoots him, hitting him square in the eye. The protagonist says it's great, but when he runs up to where Ranchea should be lying, he realizes she's definitely hit him in the head, but he can't see the body. Tentia shocked turns to His Highness, but the boy replies that Ranchea has disappeared, having escaped into the sewers that lead to the canal. The lady asks what to do now, but at that moment, the protagonist removes his cape, after which he claims that he will catch up with him, and this guy will come out through the exact pipe, shouting, "So let her go there," to which the woman replies that she understands. Valencian understands that. Before his reincarnation, Ranchea was also a problem when escaping, so he knows where the guy's headed. A little while later, the protagonist surfaces and sees Ranchea sitting on the shore. He asks if it's funny. After all, he accepted the ancient power, but it didn't instantly become stronger, to which the main character replies that this is exactly how it is, because it's an infection and not really effective. So why did he do it at all? His interlocutor replies that he knew perfectly well what he was getting into, and wonders if it needs explaining. Valencian claims that he also lost his family, to which Ranchea. He replies that yes, and he lost his brother, sister, mother, and everyone he had. Because they were on the first prince's side, he would definitely take revenge. Meanwhile, the protagonist begins to use fire piercing like a needle and directs it at Ranchea, telling him not to be led by hatred. Let him behave as befits a member of the imperial family. The operation is needed for something he can see, touch, and count. After all, they were born to live like this. At that moment, the man is about to attack, but the protagonist deftly cuts off his extra limbs. But Ranchea says what a fool he is. He'll simply infect the remaining body and recover. But at that very moment, the protagonist pokes him between the eyes, causing his interlocutor to fall and scream at him for being such a vile idiot. The protagonist, smiling, replies that all is fair in war before stabbing the man with his sword. His interlocutor then starts screaming, and the Duke wonders if this is an ultrasonic attack. However, when he opens his eyes, he sees the monster already escaping into the sewers. Ranchea, swimming through the water, realizes he needs to retreat. He then surfaces and realizes he needs to swim to the canal, and behind him is the eastern wall so he can escape. As the guy is about to go outside, he realizes he's almost there, but at that very moment, someone grabs him by the shoulder. It turns out to be the protagonist, and he asks if the guy is talking about the place, and whether he really thought he'd let him go after those words. Ranchea cries out, "What a tough guy this guy is!" And the protagonist stabs him with a blade. The blonde clutches his wounded shoulder and cries out, "What a scoundrel he is!" Several syringes fall out of his bag, but the protagonist holds the guy and asks if he really doesn't need this revenge that much. Well, his interlocutor asks what kind of nonsense Valencian is talking about. Valencian. He claims he didn't lose everything, and that's why he lied. The guy asks if he's really afraid of this happening, so he only turned part of his body into a monster, and is still losing to him. Ranchea immediately yells at Valencian, telling him what a smug bastard he is. The guy is about to strike, but the protagonist dodges, after which the blonde man says the Duke is as agile as a rat. Valencian. He understands that it is too early to lose his temper, after which he screams for Ranchea to run after him, but his interlocutor screams that he will definitely tear him to shreds. At this point, Tantia sees Mr. Valencian and claims he's floating downstream from the canal into the river. Rudy claims she hopes he'll be okay, but the red-haired lady replies that it seems they don't need to help him, but to pray for him, and the other ladies ask what that means. The woman replies that the place where Mr. Valencian is heading is the cathedral. The boy, meanwhile, is swimming with all his might and realizes he's almost there. He's only just a little bit farther, but at that very moment, someone grabs his leg and pulls him out of the water. It turns out to be Ranchea, who yells that Valencian is caught, so let him keep yelling, after which the man plunges the boy into the water again and then pulls him out again. But the protagonist only cries out to Ranchea, thanking him. At this time, people near the cathedral see a man in the air and ask what it is. Mateos is also there, and the boy wonders if it's really a man. The protagonist immediately slashes the monster's limb and falls to the floor. Mateos immediately runs to Duke Valencian, and the guy replies that he should no longer call him Duke, and he asks for holy forgiveness for his abrupt and impudent request. Well, he wonders if he could help deal with this infected one. Mateos. He replies that his power is a gift of light to fight darkness. So how can he retreat? Ranchea says what a rat Valencian is. At that moment, the boy mutates even more and screams, causing all the knights to cover their ears. Mateos cries out that in the name of the Lord of Light, he commands him to stop. The monster claims that the boy is a child of light and that he is not his target. So let Mateos give it to him. Valenciana. But the man replies that no matter what, after which he uses his powers and tells the fallen one to return to the darkness and also dispels this monster. But Ranchea screams Valenciano that they would meet in hell, and then he would force him and his sister to kneel before him and then tear their souls into pieces. The monster's last words are that they will suffer, and he tells the guy that this is just nonsense because he and his sister donated a lot to the temple, so they will definitely go to heaven. But at that very moment, someone points blades at him and cries out, "What kind of blasphemy is this?" Mateos tells them to let him go, and when the knights want to object, their interlocutor claims he'll go to the Empress himself and tell her what happened, so they can release the Duke. They agree. A short while later, Cererise cries out, wondering if the guy has gone mad and whether he even knows how tense the relationship between the throne and the church is right now. Rudy asks her not to be angry, because he is. Mr. Valencian simply fled because there was no other way. Meanwhile, the protagonist smiles, and Tantia asks if His Highness really finds this funny, and that if the church seizes on this and sides with the feudal lords, then there will be trouble. But the guy wonders if the church can side with the provincial lords, and the woman asks what he's talking about. The guy says that Now the church also knows that this infection is no longer someone else's problem. Because of how things turned out, they simply have no choice but to cooperate with the throne. A little while later, people are already running somewhere, and one of the boys says that it's the saint. Another young man claims he'll see him first. Mateos and the other knights are walking down the street at this time, and one of the boys asks where he's going. His companion asks if he's stupid, and if it's not clear that he's going to the Empress's palace. A short time later, Cardinal Hong says that as a servant of light, he is immensely happy to have been granted a meeting with Her Majesty, the Sun of this world. The woman claims she should have visited them sooner and asks for forgiveness, but she couldn't cross the threshold of the church with her hands covered in red liquid. After all, that would be ungrateful, after which the man replies that since Her Majesty herself wished to see them, it must be for the best. The woman says that as a token of apology, they will donate 1,000 gold coins and strongly recommend that the Duke enter a monastery, and to other members of the imperial family, after which she asks if they will accept her apology. The cardinal replies that only the world and conscience have the right to judge Her Majesty. But if her soul is so heavy, he asks her to come to the cathedral this weekend. The protagonist understands that this is to be expected from Célilit, and she decides to convert the remaining members of the family into monks. At the monastery, they will be unable to make political decisions, meaning they will no longer be able to hinder her, and none of them will have heirs. The woman claims that she believes the conversation is over at this point, after which she also says that the Duke Valencian lingered, because she needed to discuss something with him, to which he agreed. When the church guests left, the young man turned to Her Majesty and asked what she wanted to talk about. The woman claims she heard the boy trying to find the fugitive Justianus and wondered if he was upset that he couldn't catch him. He ran out the gate while they were fighting Renchea, but she personally doesn't attach any significance to it. The main character then wants to say something, but the woman claims that he has neither the power nor the influential support, and that she has already sent knights on his trail, so this guy can be calm. But Valencian, she realizes that this guy is in fact the traitorous prince from a past life. The Empress tells the guy not to worry as she's nearby, and everyone who could become a new threat has been eliminated today. The woman also says that without a center of gravity, there is no power, after which the young man apologizes, saying he's shown her his weakness. The Empress merely smiles and claims he's a strange man, as he seems to behave willfully, but ultimately always helps by creating a situation that's advantageous for her. The Duke claims that Her Majesty is too kind, but it's all just a coincidence. He wonders if the lady noticed, and the woman replies that yes, miracles do happen in this world, but it's only considered that way because it doesn't happen twice, and she hopes the guy who's her only close relative will continue to act like a reckless idiot. Let him continue to produce the results she needs, and she'll turn a blind eye to any of his antics. The protagonist initially looks at the Empress with a bit of surprise, then sighs. Realizing that Célilit knew everything, the young man tells Her Majesty that he vows to continue doing so. A little while later, Tentia is in the arena of the Knights of the White Order, and the woman tells the States that the gun is from Legends, and she only mentioned the story a few times, so this is the first time he sees it in person. The lady with red hair claims that this weapon is too much for Rudy, and she can't handle it, but the girl replies that it's not like that, because the Duke gave her this weapon, Valencian. The woman replies that the lady has neither the strength to control the recoil, nor the stamina to withstand the mental attacks of the filth. So who knows, maybe she'll be captured, or she'll point the gun straight at the Duke's back. The lady also says it's too early because the girl isn't ready yet, so she yells that they'll start training right away and building strength and endurance. The woman insists they'll start with light weights of 5 kilos, so she should quickly take the weights away, but the girl yells that she doesn't want to. Her interlocutor insists that even if she doesn't want to, she has no choice, so Tenti ties weights to her legs. A short time later, the maid is already running, wondering how the knight and anyone else manages to cope with such a daily workload. But at that same moment, someone else turns to Rudy, and when the lady turns around, she realizes that it is Mr. Valencian, after which she wonders if he has come to save her. But the guy just smiles and replies, "No, he was caught too." The girl, looking at his legs in shock, asks how much those weights weigh. A short time later, the two are already lying exhausted on the floor, Tentia. He claims it's excellent, since they both did a fantastic job. Rudy turns to Mr. Valencian and says she doesn't think she'll be able to get up tomorrow, after which the girl asks what to do. But the man replies that no, and asks what about an interview, after which the girl screams out, "What interview are we talking about, since she is not going to get a job anywhere?" The Duke replies that she's not going anywhere, and that she's the interviewer. The girl asks what he's talking about, and the guy replies that they're moving a little while later. The movers are already unloading the cart. Someone claims that most of the cargo wagons have already arrived, and Her Majesty is concerned about the Duke's behavior, so he will remain under constant surveillance for now. The man replies that yes, and he understands, so that's what they'll do. The manager explains that the budget for this country residence is under his control, and that Her Majesty also expresses concern about the excessive extravagance of the imperial family. But the Duke immediately replies that he understands and turns his attention to the carriage. The manager cries out to his lordship about how much booze there is and asks him to maintain his dignity. But at that very moment, he sees another carriage, and when he peers inside, cries out to his lordship, "What is this?" Members of the imperial family are supposed to set an example of modesty and not indulge in excesses, but when he looks at the smirking Duke, he asks if he's even listening. Then he sees another carriage and opens one of the chests inside. He sees romance novels and cries out to his lordship Valenciano. The young man says there's no need to worry and hands him 10 gold coins. The manager asks why the gentleman is giving them to him, and the young man points to Rudy and confirms. He appointed her as the mansion's headmaid and wanted her to be the sole manager of the place. To do that, he needed to transfer all rights to the budget to her, but he was against it, and then he'd have no choice but to drown his sorrows in the entertainment district. There, he'll naturally spend everything he has, and the entire mansion budget will flow directly there. The manager then says fine, but insists that the Duke must check the final reports, to which he thanks him for his understanding. The manager understands that he can't let the estate go bankrupt. Meanwhile, the Duke turns to Rudy and says that, for a first-timer, she's doing just fine. The girl turns to the master and says that every one of her colleagues dreams of having a good employer and becoming a senior maid, so she has achieved both goals and is now truly happy. The Duke asks if she knows how to do accounting, because if not, he can show her, and the girl says that he used to study accounting and asks if he still remembers it. The guy then asks if he's studied accounting, but then says it's unimportant, and that to create a black cash account, he needs to cut some of it. The lady, shocked, then turns to the gentleman and snatches the accounting records from his hands. A little while later, a young man enters one of the rooms and declares that these are now his quarters. He lies down on the bed and says it's so soft. The maid opens the window and claims the lighting. There is better than in the palace of the Scarlet Oriole, and the garden there is simply delightful. But at that very moment, someone knocks on the door and claims an order has arrived from Her Majesty, so he asks permission to enter. When the servants enter, one of them announces that the Empress conveyed this to him. The guy opens one of the suitcases and realizes it's Aquatech, and it's finally been developed. He reads that the liquid armor called Aquatech absorbs directly into clothing, and that he should always wear it over his clothes. It's easy to use. Let the guy simply hold it to his clothes, and it will be absorbed like regular water. He never knows when he'll have to fight, so she grants him this armor because she can't let his precious red liquid go to waste. At that very moment, the harrow soaks into the young man's clothes, and he claims it truly does so perfectly. The servant asserts that this is Her Majesty's command, and Her Majesty also asks him to refrain from rash actions for the time being. A festive review is planned for the coming winter, and the Empress is concerned about the palace being quiet, to which the young man agrees, saying that since it was the Empress's order, he will not dare disobey. A short time later, the protagonist stands before the beaten man and realizes he's in trouble. A little while earlier, Valencian was looking at goods at the market. Tentia turned to His Highness and asked if Her Majesty hadn't ordered him to live quietly, to which the boy replied that he had, but he couldn't sit still any longer. Valencian realized that if he had sat quietly as ordered, he would never have been able to bear the title of dissolute brother. He himself didn't want to go out. Well, what can he do? Maybe he should stop by the slums. They'll quickly check everything out and then head right back. Tentia cries out to His Highness, "Can he be serious?" After which, the woman sighs and asserts that a knight must value his master's orders as his own life. A short time later, they see two bandits who are now terrorizing the slums. The woman replies that it seems so, because rumors are circulating that they don't get along, and it seems that's true. The guy then says that a fight is breaking out, and with a smile on his face says that he hit his opponent. The woman tells His Highness that such things cannot be looked at with pleasure, but at the same moment, the guy notices that the opponent of one of the bandits is infected, after which he attacks the guy who hit him and then leaves. Tentia turns to His Highness and claims that everything is obvious. Even a blind man would agree with him, and they can't just let him go. However, the protagonist suggests Tentia wait and asks, "Is he the only one infected?" The guy thinks that he certainly isn't, so catching him alone won't be enough because the weeds need to be pulled out by the roots. But at that very moment, the young man remembers that Her Highness had ordered him to behave quietly, so he does not understand how he can deal with this by simply remaining supposedly wild, and things are bad. After which, the Duke suggests following this man, and the woman screams in shock to His Highness, and a little while later, they find themselves at the base of a gang called the Necklace. Valencian claims that it appears to be their lair. When they approach, the boy notices that the man has come back out, but he doesn't understand why. His interlocutor claims that the leader is waiting for the Duke on the top floor. The main character asks him what he is talking about, and a little while later, the guy is already going to the top floor. However, when he sees the leader, Tony is very surprised. It turns out it's the same girl with one leg, and the lady claims they haven't seen His Highness Valencian in a long time. She asks forgiveness for not getting up, as it's hard for her to get up. The girl claims her name is Cornell, and that she is Vitonic's daughter, but she has no last name. The guy realizes that this girl is in fact the leader's daughter. He also asks if she's the gang leader, to which the lady replies that she is. Her interlocutor asks how she knew he was coming, and the girl replies that there's a wonderful view from there, and you can see a lot. Valencian says her minions don't look like ordinary people, and are in fact infected. The girl replies that they are, and that they use the power of the ancients. They recently discovered a certain liquid in the canal, and realized it grants great power. The protagonist realizes that this is the infection inducer that belonged to Ranchea. The man says that if everything Cornell says is true, then she is the heir of the ancients, using the powers of corruption to rule the slums. According to the laws of the empire, all followers of the ancients are sentenced to death by burning. The girl replies that she serves the one who bears the face of the wolf, and whose name is Amun. The boy understands that this is the deity of the northern warriors, and he takes the fallen with honor to his world, where he receives them with honor. He never opened a demonic portal, and is considered a benevolent god. The girl claims they don't distribute drugs. On the contrary, she gathered the guards from the pleasure district and helped them quit using drugs. This caused them to conflict with other groups, which is why they used the serum. They are now helping settlers, and those displaced by crop failure in the east, and the orc invasion in the west, finding them work. The girl turns to His Highness and asks if she's truly deserving of eternal sleep. The young man realizes he has no answer, and insists that they must destroy the remaining ampules, as they are truly dangerous, so if she hands them over, he'll let her go. The girl agrees in response, and hands over her purse, after which the protagonist says that anyone who has ever received an injection can no longer be controlled, even by their own mind, so he would recommend putting them into eternal sleep. Cornell, smiling, insists that she'll take this into account, and thanks him for the warning. As the protagonist leaves, he realizes that she's a very smart girl, and despite her young age, she's managed to bring order to the entire slum area. But it all makes sense, only if she survives. A little while later, one of the ladies' charges asks the captain why she hasn't given them injections, considering it's been over a week. The girl replies that she's decided not to use them anymore, and the man exclaims, "Did she really do that?" without discussing it with them. It's not she who's going into battle, but they. Then the lady claims the substance is too dangerous, and there's no need for it anymore. The man realizes their captain is just a child, and one without a leg to boot. He only followed her for the injection, so what's the point without it? Her companion then claims he needs the injections and then screams for her to give them to him. After that, he loses his temper and prepares to attack her. The girl claims that she knew it would come to this, after which several people in black suits come into the room, and the man screams, "Is this really an assassination squad?" The lady points this out to the guy and tells him to get rid of him, after which her charges do just that. The girl also claims she didn't give them injections because they make the body bulky and sluggish, and it turned out to be an excellent decision. One of them tells Miss Cornell that thank the gods she's safe. He also claims that everyone who received the injections has mutated and asks what she'll order them to do. The girl replies that they should keep their distance from the roof and eliminate them with spears, and that survivors are not needed. But at that very moment, one of the lady's servants turns to the mistress and shouts for her to look outside. When the girl does so, she sees mercenaries from other groups there. The girl immediately orders them to take the wounded and the safe and retreat to the secret base. But he asks, what about the lady, to which the lady replies that she has business, so let them hurry. The mercenaries, a little worried, say they understand and ask Mrs. Cornell to be careful. The men understand that with such a leg, she's a liability. So even if they survive being captured by the enemy and sent into an eternal sleep by her grandchildren, isn't the best option. So it's better for her to do everything herself. But just as the lady is about to do it, someone asks if she needs help. It turns out it's the main character, and the lady wonders if it's the Grand Duke of Valenciennes. The young man wondered if she really thought he'd just take her word for it and leave. After all, he had to make sure she truly served the good omen and hadn't succumbed to the infection. The lady cried out to his lordship that it was too dangerous out there. But as soon as the girl looks out the window, the guy tells her not to worry, because lowly parasites and mercenaries are nothing compared to a knight of the Platinum Order. He also extends his hand to the lady and asserts that she is smart and probably knows a lot. After which, the guy also claims that he has proposals for her and asks if she would like to work with him. When the lady looks at his hand, she sees a ring there. A little while later, the Empress asks what the outcome is, and the guy replies that they cleared out all the empty bases and cleared the land in the abandoned neighborhoods. Those who are looking for work were offered places in the reconstruction project, and the hungry were given rations. Those who show signs of infection are sent to church for purification. Cornelius is in charge of all this, and the girl has taken everything upon herself. A ring of lightning is her aid. Created by Ceres, the Empress says that thanks to this, the slum's restoration is going well, and asks why he chose this girl as his local assistant. The guy replies that, first of all, it's because abilities, and besides, she serves Aemon, which means she won't succumb to infection, and she saw how her father plunged into eternal sleep, so she won't be drawn to substances again. And despite serving Aemon, she doesn't pose a combat threat on her own, as she depends on the ring he gave her. Therefore, this girl will be unable to betray the Empire or cross the line, and the woman wonders if this means he's put a leash on her. The Empress also says she understands, and that it's a smart decision, and the protagonist bows and claims His Highness is flattering her. The woman insists that she can't leave such an intelligent man alone in the capital while she's away, because what if he becomes the one? The protagonist, shocked, asks who the rebels will follow. The woman insists that's why he'll go with her on the New Year's expedition. And the guy asks if this is really true, after which he realizes that before only Jaled always went there, but now she really takes him with her.